Mr. Su spent nearly 10 days in the wild. Every day, besides practicing the bodyworm focusing method, he would enter Insect Valley to capture various types of poison insects and snakes, all of which were of the lowest grade. Beyond these two activities, Mr. Su also wreaked havoc on the trees in the forests near Ghost Ridge Palace. Whenever he found some valuable trees, he would use the Whitebone Sky-slaying sword to chop down these ancient trees that were unremarkable in the Tianyuan world but highly valued on Blue Star, some of which had grown for hundreds or thousands of years. It was not until 10 days had passed that Mr. Su, with a good number of poison insects in his insect control bag, finally ended this busy lifestyle and headed back to the black market. Taishu Pavilion. Kai Chunyi looked at the weary Mr. Su as he took out a pile of miscellaneous materials, including raw materials related to cultivation such as shattered purple silver, ghost springgrass, golden crown flowers, and various minerals and medicinal herbs, as well as some finished low-grade elixirs and talismans. On some of the materials, Kai Chunyi even noticed traces of blood, which sent a silent shock through her heart, guessing the origin of these materials. Given that Mr. Su had returned here unharmed, those who were pursuing him had likely become the dead souls under this man's sword, and the spoils of battle must be these traded materials. "You want to sell them all?" Kai Chunyi asked Mr. Su. Taishu Pavilion conducted business in talismans and magic artifacts and naturally accepted disciples' sales. "Sell them all. I want to buy your Chenkuan Shenbing formation diagram, but I'm a little short on funds." Mr. Su piled these spoils in front of Kai Chunyi and stated with certainty, "The Chenkuan Shenbing formation diagram? You want to buy this?" Kai Chunyi was slightly taken aback. The Chenkuan Shenbing formation diagram was a type of one-time, portable array that artifact refiners and array masters cooperated to infuse into a magic artifact. These array maps are generally used in places like caves, spirit fields, and mines, crucial locations where, as long as blood marrow crystals are provided, the array map can exert its enemy-repelling and defensive capabilities. Since this product is for one-time use and cannot be moved once it's been deployed, and considering the high cost, very few disciples would purchase it. After all, there is no need for such things in Ghost Ridge Palace, and typically only certain cultivation powers would buy such items. Mr. Su raised an eyebrow and said, "What? Do you have business you don't do? Then I'll go to another place to buy the array map." Kai Chunyi quickly grasped Mr. Su's arm and said with a coy smile, "Not at all. Missy is just a little surprised. Mr. Su, please wait a moment. I will give you an estimate right away." 10 minutes later, Mr. Su and Kai Chunyi struck a deal. The battle spoils were sold for a total of 635 blood marrow crystals. Adding to the blood marrow crystals Mr. Su already had, he spent them all, expending over 1,000 to successfully purchase a complete set of Chenkuan Shenbing formation diagrams. After completing the transaction, Mr. Su turned and left Taishu Pavilion, vanishing into the forest. In a deserted area, he quietly opened the ancient mirror and returned to the Blue Star world, also bringing back with him the large quantity of timber he had chopped down. Blue Star, Chan Country, Monday City. In the suburbs of the city, a gigantic insect breeding farm with dozens of breeding factories and over 1,000 employees covered a vast area. At the entrance of the farm, the glittering words, "Jekka Fumin Breeding Farm," shone brightly. The employees who worked in and out of the breeding farm all beamed with ruddy complexions, brimming with vitality. Simply because they had joined Jekka Company, as official staff members, their monthly salary and status were the envy of others. Beep beep. A fleet of several luxury cars drove up the newly built tar road, and the standing guard carrying an AK courteously stopped the convoy. Jekka Security was responsible for this super-large insect breeding farm, and besides the station guards and patrolling security, the entire factory also implemented strict access control measures, with many areas requiring credentials and fingerprints for entry. To defend this insect breeding farm, there was also a Jekka security barracks located 3 kilometers away. More than 2,000 members of Jekka Security were stationed at the barracks, ready to assist the factory at a moment's notice should any situation arise. The leading vehicle rolled down its window, and the pretty face of Lu Yingying was seen by the guards, who immediately became serious, recognizing her as the president of Jekka Company, and saluted her with utmost respect. However, they still checked her credentials according to protocol before letting the convoy through. The vehicles entered the factory and came to a stop, and suit-clad individuals began to step out one after another. Aside from the senior executives of Jekka Company, the cars also carried many high-ranking officials from Monday City, including Mayor and Sangshin. A large group revolved around a young man as they toured the newly built largest insect breeding plant in Chan Country. Mr. Su, the Fumin breeding farm was just completed last week. Built entirely to your specifications. It can accommodate hundreds of millions of poison insects and snakes for breeding and has completed comprehensive firefighting and virus protection systems. We owe much to the assistance provided by the municipal government departments. Otherwise, our construction wouldn't have been so swift. Lu Yingying reported in detail while accompanying Su Jie, holding a folder in her hands, and referred to him with honorifics before the outsiders. Su Jie strolled along the green walkways of the breeding farm, observing the surrounding breeding workshops. Poison insects and snakes purchased from outside farmers were carefully bred here through specialized disinfection, disease prevention, and waste cleaning processes to ensure the creatures thrived. The scene before him pleased Su Jie, and he said to Sangshin with a smile, "You've worked hard, Mayor. I hear you've set up a special channel just for Jekka Company, ensuring that matters concerning us are expedited as a priority." Not at all. Jekka Company is one of Monday region's major taxpayers and a model corporation. Without Jekka, without your wise leadership, Mr. Su, our Monday region wouldn't be thriving as it is now. Of course, it's only right that our municipal government makes an effort to show support, responded Sangshin with an ingratiating smile, looking more like a fawning lackey than the Monday City Mayor in front of Su Jie. I must say, Mayor An is performing quite well. Perhaps we can entrust him with more responsibilities in the future. It's important for Monday City to have such talented individuals for it to prosper and develop. Su Jie commented to Lu Yingying, who nodded and made a note of it. Mr. Su, you flatter me. My small contributions are nothing compared to yours. I am not even worthy to carry your shoes. Should you have any instructions in the future, our municipal government will definitely cooperate with full dedication, said Sangshin, his face brightening. With Su Jie's words, his position as the newly appointed Monday City Mayor seemed secured. Nobody knew better than him the influence that Su Jie wielded. As the young man who single-handedly established Jekka Company was the real power behind the scenes in the Monday region. Especially recently, there were frequent reports about Jekka Company, from recruiting retired soldiers for security training to tying up economically with a vast number of farmers via commercial channels, to gargantuan public infrastructure development such as schools, hospitals, and roads, advancing their cause through both military and economic influence. It could be bluntly stated that the entire Monday region was Jekka Company's backyard, and whether he remained as mayor was just a matter of a word from the man before him. Other officials, upon hearing Su Jie's remarks, couldn't help but show a trace of envy on their faces. Flattering was not something just anyone had the opportunity to do. Many officials, full of ambition, were extremely jealous of Sangshin. Even if it meant being a puppet, it was a position atop Monday City's power hierarchy, second only to one person. Who wouldn't want that? After touring the Fumin breeding farm for half an hour, Su Jie sent the accompanying officials away. Even Lu Yingying wasn't with him, as Su Jie came alone to the core area of the breeding farm and stood in front of a building. This building was the true heart of the Fumin breeding farm. Outwardly claimed to be Su Jie's personal laboratory, in reality it actually was a laboratory. However, the subjects of experimentation here were quite extraordinary, the results of which would be beyond the understanding and common knowledge of the people of Blue Star. Swipe. Through a password, fingerprint, and iris scan, Su Jie opened the laboratory to which only he had access. The lab symbolically contained a row of equipment which Su Jie didn't give a second glance. He didn't know how to use them but simply turned on the signal scrambler and then made a beeline for the elevator inside, descending dozens of meters to a secret base located underground. The base was sealed with thick, sturdy reinforced concrete on all sides, with only a few large pipes connecting to the outside world. These pipes led to the surface's poison insect warehouse. Some poisonous insects and snakes, as per Su Jie's instructions, purportedly needed for experimentation, would be dropped into the pipes by the staff, ending up at this secret base. But Su Jie's true intent was actually to prepare for the advancement of the poisonous insects. At this moment, the underground base was already filled with a mass of all sorts of poisonous insects and snakes. Colorful snakes and countless insects surged like the tide, giving one goosebumps just looking at them. Yet, when Su Jie saw this scene, he was not at all afraid. Instead, he revealed a hint of a smile. "With so many poison insects, you'll have a lot to enjoy," he said. Su Jie revealed a smile like that of a villain in a TV drama, casually taking out a black round plate from his storage bag. This was the Chenkuan Xianbing array plate. Placing the array plate at the center of the base, Su Jie channeled spiritual energy into it and, albeit reluctantly, embedded it with hundreds of blood marrow crystals. With an ample supply of energy, the array plate was immediately activated, glowing faintly as waves of spiritual power swept out. Layers of ice crystals grew out of thin air, forming a hemispherical dome-shaped protective barrier, covering the underground base and then gradually dissipating into the air. Trying it out, Su Jie stepped forward and threw a full-strength punch. Boom! The cannonball-like fist had barely shot out when a layer of ice crystals spontaneously appeared in the air, and mysterious array patterns scurried across the ice crystals. As the fist struck down, the entire array of ice crystals remained unmoved, and Su Jie ended up causing his own fist to throb with pain. After all, it was a defense array map worth thousands of blood marrow crystals. Su Jie, being only at the 5th level of Yunling realm in cultivation, certainly couldn't break it with brute force alone, unless he used the thousand-handed centipede or the white-bone sky-slaying sword. However, Su Jie didn't attempt to do so, as he couldn't afford to buy another array map. The defensive capabilities of the current array map were already sufficient for his use. After experimenting, Su Jie didn't hesitate and patted the insect control bag at his waist. Crash! As the insect control bag opened, terrifying poison insects of bizarre shapes and ferocious appearances swarmed out like a flood. 7-colored poison frogs, ghost flame spiders, armored vulture blood ants, black shark snakes, one after another inferior poison insects from Tianyuan world, all captured by Su Jie from Insect Valley, were now released in one fell swoop. Hiss! Sizzle! Rustle! The Tianyuan poison insects moved about. Their initial unease in the unfamiliar environment was quickly allured by the countless food in front of them, and a multitude of Tianyuan poison insects began crawling towards the blue star poison insects. With the brain capacity of these poison insects, they obviously couldn't understand the consequences brought by the change in environment, only feeling like they were in heaven as they rushed into the blue star insect swarm and started to gorge themselves. Although the blue star poison insects held an advantage in numbers, the poisonous creatures from Tianyuan world were undoubtedly much more fierce and brutal, resulting in a completely one-sided battle. Apart from stuffing Tianyuan poison insects to death, the blue star poison insects had no real means of fighting back. Su Jie let these poison insects fight and devour each other. Many Tianyuan poison insects, already having accumulated a substantial amount within themselves, showed a tentative trend toward evolution as they fed. Hiss hiss! A red blood silver bee furiously devoured a batch of poison insects, then suddenly targeted another Tianyuan poison insect, a golden-winged lion spider, flashing its massive stinger and firmly plunging it into the body of its fellow creature. As the poison took effect, the golden-winged lion spider quickly became stiff, and the red blood silver bee dragged it up to the light fixtures on the ceiling, where its sharp mouthparts voraciously consumed it. Halfway through the meal, the red blood silver bee's speed gradually slowed down. Eventually, it stopped eating entirely as an insect cocoon formed around it, signaling the start of its evolution. Tianyuan poisonous insects devouring and attacking each other was not an uncommon sight, but Su Jie naturally would not allow such things to happen. It was too wasteful. He had ample resources of blue star poison insects, but the Tianyuan poison insects were ones he had painstakingly captured. If a poison insect, that he had managed to cultivate to low-grade status with great difficulty, were to be eaten halfway by its kin, that would be a tremendous loss. To prevent such pointless infighting, Su Jie manipulated the Chengquan Shenbing formation diagram. Layers of ice crystals fell from the ceiling, dividing the underground base into separate small compartments that were not interconnected. Each compartment contained only one Tianyuan poisonous insect, along with a massive amount of blue star poison insects for its consumption. Without the threat of cannibalism from their kind, the Tianyuan poison insects could only devour the common blue star poison insects before them. For a while, the entire underground base was filled with the sounds of various insects feeding. Amidst this continuous feeding, the red blood silver bee completed its evolution, doubling in size and becoming a genuine low-grade poisonous insect. The newly evolved low-grade red blood silver bee flapped its wings, attempting to escape its cage in a restless high-speed flight, but alas, even after ascending to low-grade status, it could not budge the Chengquan Shenbing formation diagram in the slightest. Hiss! The red blood silver bee brandished its stinger proudly, undeterred and planning to strike again with its poison, only to be suddenly overwhelmed by a gaping maw that lunged at it. The next moment, its entire body was engulfed. Crunch! The thousand-handed centipede chewed on the protein-rich red blood silver bee, its body exuding a joyous aura. To it, a mere low-grade poisonous insect was nothing but a delicious snack. After consuming one, the thousand-handed centipede eagerly eyed the other poison insects, hoping they would quickly evolve. The evolved low-grade poison insects were even more delectable and nutritionally rich to eat. You're so greedy. These are for you to enjoy once you've advanced to mid-grade. You'll have to wait a bit longer. Su Jie chuckled and scolded. The underground base would continue to operate. Today was just the beginning. As time went on, more and more low-grade poisonous insects would emerge. This place was essentially a production line factory for cultivating low-grade poisonous insects that Su Jie had established. In the future, once the thousand-handed centipede evolved to mid-grade, having it devour these low-grade poisonous insects would continue to aid its ascent. The Chengquan Shenbing formation diagram stored here acted like a prison, trapping all those evolved insects inside. As for Su Jie himself, he wasn't too interested in ordinary low-grade poisonous insects at the moment. With the thousand-handed centipede for high-end combat power and the human-faced moth swarm for area attacks, utilizing both required a lot of effort given his 5th-level Yunling realm cultivation. Contracting more poison insects would only dissipate his focus. Rather than doing that, it would be better to fully cultivate the thousand-handed centipede, enabling it to ascend to a higher grade more quickly. Imagining the various possibilities for the future, Su Jie looked at the production line insect breeding base before him, feeling a surge of pride and satisfaction. Having left the Fumin breeding farm laboratory, Su Jie arrived at a meeting room. At that time, Lu Yingying, Chen Yaoguang, and Liang Lianjuan, who were the core of Su Jie's team, were already waiting. Among the three, Liang Lianjuan was responsible for the lumber business of Tianyuan furniture. Chen Yaoguang handled the breeding, production, and acquisition of poison insects, and Lu Yingying managed all the affairs, big and small, of the Jekka company in the Mande region. Mr. Su. Mr. Su. Liang Lianjuan and Chen Yaoguang quickly stood up when they saw Su Jie. Especially the former, Liang Lianjuan hadn't expected Su Jie to cause such a commotion in Chan country, becoming akin to a local overlord in the Mande region. Su Jie nodded and spoke. Everyone, please sit. Let's first discuss what has been going on recently. Liang Lianjuan stood up first and said, Mr. Su, the last shipment of lumber returned to Hua country has been sold out. Tianyuan Home Furnishing has sent back a payment of 4.3 billion yuan, which is the income after tax deduction. Aside from holding back 3 billion for company development, the remaining funds have all been transferred to Jekka Company. Su Jie tapped the table and praised, Very good. Do not worry about resources. I have prepared another batch of precious lumber in the warehouse. It can continue to be shipped back to Hua country for sale after clearing customs. Liang Lianjuan's eyes lit up, and with Su Jie's words, he felt reassured. As long as the supply of precious lumber was ensured, he was confident that he could make Tianyuan Home Furnishing the #1 high-end furniture brand in Hua country. After Liang Lianjuan had reported, Chen Yaoguang promptly stood up. Mr. Su, the poison insect breeding outreach campaign I was managing is nearly complete. Now, families throughout the Mande region have taken up poison insect breeding. Our industry is very prosperous. Only the funds for buying poison insects are being spent too quickly. Money matters. Yingying will sort it out for you. Su Jie was non-committal and looked at Lu Yingying. Lu Yingying took out some documents and reported. Currently, Jekka Company's accounts still hold 800 million Hua Yuan. Besides the payment from Tianyuan Home Furnishing, after taking over the Mande region, we have cleared out Lu Wenba and his officials' assets. They had squeezed the locals of the Mande region for years, amassing substantial riches including luxury cars, shops, and gold, which significantly supported our building efforts in the Mande region. Further, according to your instructions, Mr. Su, aside from developing public facilities in the Mande region, we have also increased our investment in Jekka security. We have now recruited retired soldiers from other countries for relevant military training. After streamlining Jekka's security forces, we have a total of 5,000 combat-ready personnel. Those who were let go are now working in logistics and production. As for weaponry, several arms dealers contacted us, and Jekka Company has purchased a batch of weapons. This has been our largest expenditure apart from the breeding factories. Did buying the weapons go without a hitch? Su Jie showed little reaction. Chan country was a nation constantly disturbed by internal conflicts, where the presence of arms dealers was perpetual as long as there was war. After disturbances arose in the Mande region, many arms dealers reached out, hoping to make a profit from arms trading. This aligned perfectly with Jekka Company's needs, and they have since purchased a batch of arms worth several billion Hua Yuan. No, we dealt in cash transactions within the Mande region, so the arms dealers could not play any tricks. The weapons purchased, as advised by foreign retired officers, are primarily light weapons, which suit our current needs given the tropical, mountainous terrain in Chan country, Lu Yingying confidently stated. Her company's unprecedented influence in the Mande region meant ordinary arms dealers wouldn't dare cause trouble unless they wanted a harsh retaliation. You all worked hard. Inform me if there's anything you can't handle. Su Jie nodded. With the development of the Mande region now on track, he needed not worry too much. Working for Mr. Su, I am now filled with drive, Liang Lianjuan frankly stated, his mindset on expanding Tianyuan Furniture to become the leading timber furniture enterprise domestically. This professional advancement, combined with bonus rewards, kept Liang Lianjuan highly motivated even in middle age, his vigor not falling short of younger men. Mr. Su, I feel the same way. Chen Yaoguang scratched the back of his head and gave a silly smile. He was extremely satisfied with his current life. In the past, he had managed a small scorpion breeding farm, and now he was the actual controller of over 100,000 household small breeding farms in Mande region. It was still the career he loved. He couldn't ask for too much more. After talking in the conference room for half an hour and instructing the next steps for development, Su Jie and Lu Yingying shared some affectionate time, then returned to Tianyuan World once again. Mountain Gate of Ghost Ridge Palace. Su Jie returned here alone. As soon as he entered the gate, a disciple looked over skeptically, obviously recognizing Su Jie, the lucky one. Indeed, in the eyes of most disciples, Su Jie, who had obtained the white-bone sky-slaying sword, was seen as someone who had stumbled into good fortune, profiting from the capture of an alien ghost that someone else had hunted. Su Jie pretended not to notice, since, if anyone couldn't hold back and wanted to take action, Su Jie wouldn't mind laying them to rest. Instead of returning to his own stone cave, Su Jie went straight to the command hall and stepped inside. Brother Wu. In front of a counter, Su Jie found Wu Bin, the manager of the command hall. Wu Bin, who had been dozing off out of sheer boredom, lifted his head and showed a surprised look upon seeing Su Jie. Ha, dear brother. Where have you been these past 2 months? I haven't seen you come by to visit even once. Wu Bin warmly stood up, expressing slightly reproachfully. To Wu Bin, Su Jie was impressively memorable, not merely for hunting 3 alien ghosts, but also for being favored by Taoist Chiu, who bestowed upon him the white-bone sky-slaying sword, likely marking him as a future inner disciple. Being a manager of command hall with moderate authority, Wu Bin was keen on building good relations with Su Jie, a potential stock, gambling on Su Jie's future promotion to being an inner disciple. Becoming friends with an inner disciple would highly benefit him. Su Jie sighed and said, "It's not that I don't want to, but recently too many people have been keeping tabs on me, and I couldn't find the time to come here." Hearing this, Wu Bin nodded in understanding and said, "I still have confidence in your strength, brother. To avoid those troubles, I'd like to ask for your help, Brother Wu." Su Jie coughed twice, taking the opportunity to make his request. "What is it?" "I'd like you to help me arrange a mission," Su Jie stated his intentions. In Ghost Ridge Palace, any disciple movement had to go through the command hall. As the manager of command hall, though Wu Bin didn't have the authority to dispatch inner disciples, he could assign tasks to outer disciples. For instance, for a mission requiring herb collection or insect capture that Ghost Ridge Palace would announce, it specified which tier of disciples should take it. But with so many disciples in Ghost Ridge Palace, who specifically takes on the mission could be manipulated. This was entirely dependent on the arrangements made by Command Hall, and since rules were set by humans, they were inevitably influenced by human factors. Your rest period should have already expired, and it's likely that you will be assigned to deal with tasks related to the alien ghosts. I'm finding it quite difficult to arrange things on my end. Upon hearing this, Wu Bin's face showed a look of difficulty. Currently, Ghost Ridge Palace faced a threat from the alien ghosts, and aside from tasks related to them, most other tasks were put on hold. Wu Bin thought that Su Jie wanted him to arrange a leisurely and safe task, which was not easy to do. After all, while the alien ghosts posed a threat to the safety of the entire Ghost Ridge Palace, if you were to slack off on other tasks while the others fought life and death battles against the alien ghosts, it would surely draw criticism from other disciples. That's not it. I can accept tasks related to the alien ghosts, but they must be far away from the vicinity of Ghost Ridge Palace's mountain gate. Su Jie expressed his own needs. With his current strength, as long as he didn't come across a large-scale attack by alien ghosts, a few of them would pose no threat to him, and naturally Su Jie was not afraid. The reason for this was that Su Jie wanted to stay away from Ghost Ridge Palace's mountain gate, because he had too many secrets. A low-grade 3-refining poisonous insect, the insect control technique, and the body worm focusing method, which only inner disciples could cultivate. Especially the body worm focusing method, which caused quite a commotion when practiced. If he were near the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace, a knowledgeable inner disciple or elder might see through it once he began to perform the technique. Before advancing to an inner disciple, Su Jie planned to stay away from the vicinity of the mountain gate and find a remote place to properly develop his skills. If that's the case, then it's easy to handle. Wu Bin breathed a sigh of relief, as this request was easy for him to fulfill. Then I'll thank Brother Wu in advance. Please arrange it for me as soon as possible. Su Jie wasn't one to have others work for him without compensation. He took out some blood marrow crystals from his storage bag and handed them over. "Young brother, what are you doing? There's no need to stand on ceremony over such a small matter." Although he verbally declined, Wu Bin's hands didn't hesitate at all as he deftly took the blood marrow crystals, his face showing even greater enthusiasm. As for Su Jie, he didn't take it to heart. Their relationship was just that, merely based on mutual benefit. After exiting the command hall, Su Jie returned to his stone cave dwelling to cultivate in peace. Breaking through from the 5th level of Yunling Realm to the 6th level was an extremely difficult barrier to cross. The key to breaking through this step was to compress the gaseous spiritual power in the Dantian into liquid. Once accomplished, the storage capacity for spiritual power would multiply by 4 or 5 times, but achieving this was by no means easy. That is also why the inner disciples and outer disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace use this as a divide, with only those reaching the 6th level of Yunling Realm being able to ascend to become inner disciples. And most disciples, for their entire lives, are blocked by this difficult barrier, able only to wander around at the 5th level of Yunling Realm. Su Jie himself had very ordinary cultivation aptitude, one might even call it rubbish. The fact that he had come this far and reached the 5th level of the Yunling Realm was not due to his own talent, but more because of the spiritual power feedback from the Thousand-Hand Centipede. Now Su Jie faced the same problem. After several days of cultivation, there was virtually no progress, and breaking through to the 6th level seemed far off in the future. Su Jie could only hope that the thousand-hand centipede would advance to a mid-grade poisonous insect soon, thereby allowing him to advance to the 6th level of Yunling realm. Several days hastily passed by. That day, Su Jie was still in his stone cave dwelling at Ghost Ridge Palace practicing cultivation, waiting for a message from Manager Wu when he suddenly heard faint noises of commotion from outside. Pushing open the stone door of his cave dwelling, Su Jie saw that today Ghost Ridge Palace seemed to have some distinguished guests arriving. He saw a procession of women dressed in colorful garments, glamorously attired, wearing red and adorned with festive decorations, taking stiff steps and gradually ascending the stone steps of Ghost Ridge Palace's mountain gate one after another. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that these young women all wore a numb and mournful expression on their faces, with a red silk ribbon threaded through the waists of all the young women, forcibly controlling their movements. The one holding this red silk magic artifact was a middle-aged man at the rear of the group of women dressed in floral clothing. His hair was sparse and greasy, his belly bloated, dressed in silk, with a jade ring on his finger. He epitomized the look of wealthy and luxurious. He sat atop a sedan carried by a group of servants, his left hand holding the red silk, and in his right, he twirled a pair of dragon-patterned walnuts, bursting into hearty laughter. Jia Chongshuan from Luyun Manor, under the Manor Master's orders, has come to visit Ghost Ridge Palace, with a tribute of 36 virgin maidens. Thud! Thud! The young women, one by one, released from control, knelt down before the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace. Some of the women couldn't stop weeping, others shouted angrily, and many more looked around in terror, trembling, not knowing what to do. Su Jie squeezed amongst a crowd of Ghost Ridge Palace disciples who were there to watch the excitement, and when he heard the name Luyun Manor, his eyes inevitably narrowed slightly. The last time he heard that name was when he killed Jia Xian. As one of Ghost Ridge Palace's 5 special merchant teams, Luyun Manor was a well-known slave owner in the black market, dealing in the mass buying and selling of slave populations. The Jia Xian whom Su Jie had killed came from Luyun Manor, and fortunately for Su Jie, he had been discreet that time, attracting no suspicion. So, it's a visit from Luyun Manor. Please come in quickly. Within Ghost Ridge Palace, an elder whom Su Jie did not recognize, with half-white hair, wearing a wide robe, and with a goatee, walked over and greeted Jia Chongshuan with a bow. Elder Hu, long time no see. This is a little token of appreciation. Jia Chongshuan stepped down from the sedan, seeming well acquainted with Elder Hu's preferences, clapped his hands, and at once several servants dragged over a pair of children, around 10 years old, and presented them before Elder Hu. Much appreciated. The black market has been short on goods recently. It's been a long time since I've come across such nice human slaves. Elder Hu stroked his goatee, his eyes gleaming green. The bottom of his robe rustled softly, damp and slimy, as slug-like soft-bodied flesh worms wriggled out and in an instant dragged the 2 children inside his wide robe. All that was seen were a few bulges on the robe, accompanied by the sound of breaking bones, and then silence. Comfortable. Elder Hu's face became particularly rosy, as if rejuvenated. Su Jie watching felt a chill in his heart. If it were the past, he would not have known what magic skill this was, but now he knew. Elder Hu was clearly practicing the human worm refining technique, feeding people to the worms, merging them with his body. Jia Chongshuan, as if accustomed to such cruelty, chuckled and said, "Our manor master knew that Ghost Ridge Palace was short on supplies, so he ordered me to come help out. We have a lot of human slaves prepared outside the mountain, just waiting to be brought in." As he spoke, Jia Chongshuan whispered in Elder Hu's ear, "Please speak favorably of us to the sect master, and should you have a chance, Elder, you may visit our Luyun Manor. We have many kids of suitable age. I appreciate your sentiments from Luyun Manor, but I dare not venture out of the mountain gate lightly. If those lunatics from the Jilwan Sword Pavilion knew, I fear I wouldn't make it back." Elder Hu shook his head, he who had just swallowed 2 children whole, now referring to others as lunatics, sounded like a great irony. "As for the sect master, I'll speak on your behalf." As long as you can bring us human slaves, the price is definitely not an issue. Thank you very much, then. I'll leave it in the care of Elder Hu. Jia Chongshuan smiled broadly, flicked the red silk, and the group of young women still kneeling on the ground became rigid again, moving their stiff steps like puppets toward the depths of Ghost Ridge Palace. And no one knew what fate or experiences awaited them. The thought of the two children from before enough to send shudders down one's spine. Isn't this junior brother Su? After watching the lively scene, Su Jie was about to leave when suddenly a light laugh came from behind him. Turning around, he saw Yu Wenxian wearing a delicate golden hairpin, dressed in a light gauze dress, her graceful figure fully revealed, walking towards him with light steps. Senior Yu. Su Jie greeted Yu Wenxian with a bow, unsure of why she had stopped him. Why so formal? I am only 2 years older than you. You can call me sister, if you want. A smile played on the lips of Yu Wenxian as she drew closer, a faint, fragrant scent drifting over. Her snow-white skin was tantalizing beneath the light gauze, utterly enticing. Faced with such a scene, Su Jie felt his scalp tingle and said with a forced smile, Senior Yu, I still have matters to attend to, so I must be going. Yu Wenxian did not stop him, but casually mentioned, Pei Haibing is looking for you. Pei Haibing. At the mention of the name, Su Jie's steps faltered. Sister won't harm you. Why are you so afraid of me? It seemed Yu Wenxian knew Su Jie would stay, and she smiled charmingly, her eyes curving into crescent moons. Su Jie cleared his throat twice, ignoring her bait, and inquired, Senior Yu, is Brother Pei really looking for me? Do you know what it's about? Ah, did I ever say that? Yu Wenxian blinked innocently, displaying a very innocent expression. Su Jie was speechless, thinking, stop putting on that innocent look, you notorious witch of the Ghost Ridge Palace. Look at you, you're so easily teased. All right, I'll stop joking, Yu Wenxian said, pursing her lips and smiling. Brother Pei was quite angry last time. He was just released from confinement by our master. Right after that, he began asking around for your whereabouts. Is that so? Su Jie was well aware that Pei Haibing wasn't looking for him to share a tea or admire the moon. Other than revenge for the last time Su Jie had stolen the white-bone sky-slaying sword, he couldn't think of another reason. Yu Wenxian sized Su Jie up from head to toe and said, You seem not at all surprised. I guess it's about the white-bone sky-slaying sword incident from last time. Su Jie looked resolutely at Yu Wenxian and spoke, Senior Yu, the fact that you specifically came to tell me this, it might be too much, considering I'm just an outer disciple. You are not just any outer disciple, which other outer disciple can kill 3 alien ghosts. As the saying goes, beauty loves a hero. Junior brother Su, you're so powerful, it really makes my heart flutter. What if you stay with me, and I help you fend off junior brother Pei? Would that be all right? Yu Wenxian's eyes were seductive. She took a step forward, her jade hand touching Su Jie's chest, her red lips close to his ear, breath as sweet as orchid, making his bones itch. Thank you for the kind offer, Senior Yu, but I am physically weak and have weak kidneys. I fear I can't take care of you. Perhaps you should find someone else. There are so many male disciples in the sect who are both strong and handsome without me. Su Jie stepped back, not at all tempted, but instead, more guard arose within him. Many young male disciples were seduced by Yu Wenxian just like this. Step by step they fell into submission, eventually becoming enslaved by her, their lives no longer their own. Who is spreading rumors about me? Now the junior brothers are not so easily fooled. Yu Wenxian slightly complained, then said, Junior brother Su, let me secretly tell you something. White bone transformation skill, weak fire. Pei Haibing practiced this very Taoist skill, the white bone transformation skill. At this, Yu Wenxian covered her mouth, as if she had only just realized. Ah, did I say something wrong? Don't tell junior brother Pei it was me who told you. I just want to see junior brother Su again after all. A junior brother as interesting as you are pretty rare these days. After leaving this comment, Yu Wenxian looked around cautiously and, seeing that no one had noticed, she patted her chest with some relief and said with a smile, I won't stay any longer. just in case someone finds out. I wouldn't want junior brother Pei to hold a grudge against me. Giggle, junior brother Su, you must survive. Having said that, Yu Wenxian turned and left gracefully, her figure swaying attractively as she walked slowly away. Standing in place, Su Jie rubbed his brow, digesting the words Yu Wenxian had said, and exclaimed, "The strife among the inner disciples has already become so intense, huh?" 2 days later, Su Jie finally received news from Wu Bin. His task had been issued. As soon as Su Jie arrived at Command Hall, Wu Bin handed him a token and said, "The patrol task at Jade Pillar Mountain requires a rotation every 2 months, mainly to guard against attacks by alien ghosts. Jade Pillar Mountain is on the border of Ghost Ridge Palace and is known for producing a type of mineral called jade magnetic vein crystal, often used in artifact refining to increase the temperature of the flames. It is a common consumable material in artifact refining. Because the mine has a large reserve, Ghost Ridge Palace disciples are stationed there all year round, with dedicated slaves working the mining. With alien ghosts running rampant, this mining site is naturally also affected. To ensure mineral extraction, naturally, the number of disciples must be increased to guard against attacks by alien ghosts. Thank you, Brother Wu. This task is perfect for me." Su Jie was very satisfied with this assignment. The location was remote, with little personnel movement, and without inner disciples stationed there, making it even more suitable for his activities. "No big deal. I can still help you with this little favor as your brother," Wu Bin said cheerfully, when just at that moment, a dark-faced man came over, also dressed in Command Hall manager's attire. "Wu Bin, the task you just issued. Change the personnel from Su Jie to an escort mission." "What?" Upon hearing this, both Su Jie and Wu Bin were taken aback. Especially Wu Bin, who immediately stood up, feeling his dignity had been offended, and said discontentedly, "What's the meaning of this, Lao Yang? I've already arranged everything properly. Why the sudden change?" "Lao Wu, don't stick your neck out. It seems like someone is targeting him. They've paid off quite a few connections." Yang Qingquan lowered his voice. He had a good relationship with Wu Bin and even took the chance to give him a heads up. Then, looking at Su Jie with a somewhat sympathetic expression, Yang Qingquan shook his head and said, "You are Su Jie, right? We are just following the rules. Are you going to accept the command or refuse and show disrespect?" He held a task token in his hand with Su Jie's name written on the front. Su Jie took a deep breath and took the token from his hand. "Since it is a task issued by Command Hall, as a disciple of Ghost Ridge Palace, I naturally won't refuse. Task disciples have no right to refuse a task issued by Command Hall unless they want to be pursued by the law enforcement team." Yang Qingquan pointed towards the gate, saying, "Then please proceed. The task requires you to depart today, and your escort team is probably waiting at the mountain gate already. Hurry up. Don't delay. Brother, be careful. Someone is targeting you this time." Wu Bin looked somewhat upset. After all, there are dozens of managers in Command Hall, and he couldn't decide everything alone. "I understand." Su Jie nodded, with a vague guess already forming in his mind. Walking toward the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace, from a distance, Su Jie could see a group of about a dozen disciples gathered there. There were roughly 50 to 60 people in the group, each with a bundle on their back, standing beside several dozen sturdy, tall horses. All of them were outer disciples, with strengths ranging from the 3rd level to the 5th level of the Yunling realm. Among these disciples, Su Jie also noticed 2 familiar figures, Gu Weonian and Chen Yun. Since their last parting at the black market, the 2 had taken the blood marrow crystal allocated by Su Jie and gone into hiding to evade assassins. He hadn't expected to see them both here at the same time. "Mr. Su. Brother Su." Both of them also noticed Su Jie. "Brother Gu. Chun, it's been more than 2 months, hasn't it? How have you been lately?" Su Jie also nodded and greeted them. Gu Weonian had a somewhat melancholy expression as he said, "Ah, we were well hidden. But then a messenger crow suddenly brought a task token, and I truly did not wish to go out at my old age. Mr. Su, I didn't expect to be so fortunate this time to be in a team with you." Chen Yun showed goodwill towards Su Jie. Su Jie, who had helped her take revenge and deal with the murderer of her brother and husband, held a special place in her heart. This may not be a matter of luck. Su Jie shook his head and looked towards a slender figure slowly approaching. The blue long robe that signified the distinguished status of an inner sect disciple, the indifferent eyes, and the aura that warned others to keep their distance. This person was Pei Haibing, an inner disciple from Taoist Qiu's lineage. The moment he saw the other party, Su Jie understood everything. The modification of his task was most likely this person's doing. With the influence of an inner disciple, it wasn't hard to accomplish with just some money. It wasn't just Su Jie. Gu Weonian and Chen Yun also thought of this. Otherwise, it was all too coincidental. Their already decent mood immediately cooled down. Offending an inner disciple was not something they were able to withstand, and the retaliation was too swift. Brother Pei. Brother Pei. Upon Pei Haibing's arrival, a group of disciples immediately spoke up. Regardless of whether they were disciples from Taoist Qiu's lineage or not, or whether they had joined the sect earlier, calling an inner disciple brother was definitely correct. Pei Haibing looked around with a cold gaze, his eyes lingering on Su Jie, Chen Yun, and Gu Weonian for a few seconds. Especially with Su Jie. He could feel a concealed killing intent from the other's eyes. Pei Haibing slowly began speaking as he took out a task token. This time our mission is to escort a shipment, which requires leaving the domain of Ghost Ridge Palace and going to the territory of Qingzhou Shaojia Prefecture to transport back a batch of human slaves for Liyun Manor. As these words were spoken, there was a slight commotion among the disciples. Because their task tokens had only mentioned a simple escort mission, they had not expected to actually leave the territory of Ghost Ridge Palace. Demon cultivators were reviled and persecuted everywhere outside. Once they lost the protection of their sect, being discovered while traveling in the outside world would be extremely dangerous. Especially those from reputable sects who prided themselves in eliminating demons and defending the Tao, they were most keen on causing trouble for them, the demon cultivators. Liyun Manor, huh? Su Jie immediately thought of the scene from 2 days earlier when Jia Chongshuan had come to visit. This mission was most likely an ad hoc edition, due to the transportation needs for a large number of human slaves after Jia Chongshuan's arrival. Mount up and depart now. Pei Haibing did not care about the astonishment of the disciples and led a tall horse over to mount and ride. Other disciples, even if they were extremely reluctant, could only grit their teeth and mount their horses to head out of the mountain gate. Su Jie also mounted a horned scale horse. This breed of horse had hooves similar to those of a goat, and not only were they remarkably enduring, but they could also travel through mountains and steep trails. The horned scale horse was specially bred by Ghost Ridge Palace, generally only provided to the disciples for long journeys. Mr. Su, Gu Weonian, riding a horned scale horse, caught up with Su Jie with a troubled look on his face. You're quick-witted, so think of a way quickly. Pei Haibing is clearly targeting us. It must be because we offended him at the black market last time, causing him to be punished by our master, and he has remembered that grudge. What's the use of saying that now? It's quite obvious. Chen Yun spoke coldly from the other side of Su Jie when she heard this. This woman, because of the scars from a previous wound, had centipede-like suture marks on her face and neck, which made her look very intimidating when she was stern. Su Jie laughed, his gaze shifting toward Pei Haibing ahead, and said, "If you want to know, why not just go and ask him?" After finishing his sentence, Su Jie tugged the reins. His horse neighed, and he dashed towards the front. Gu Weonian stared agape. He even trembled when talking to the inner disciples, yet Su Jie was not only unafraid but even dared to approach proactively, which truly astounded him. As the other disciples watched with amazement, Su Jie rode up beside Pei Haibing and smiled. "Brother Pei, long time no see. This time heading out away from Ghost Ridge Palace territory. The mountains are high, and the roads are long. I must trouble you to take good care of us." Pei Haibing glanced over, not knowing if Su Jie was playing dumb or was genuinely foolish, and smirked. "Rest assured, I will take very good care of you, in the most meticulous way possible." While speaking, Pei Haibing touched his face, which still seemed to be faintly in pain. That was the aftereffect of being punished by their master, Taoist Chiu, who had made snakes wriggle underneath the skin. Su Jie's face was radiant with a smile, and after hearing those words, he gestured with cupped hands atop his mount. Then I thank Brother Pei in advance. Brother Gu, Chun, aren't you going to come over and pay your respects? We are all disciples of the same master. Why be so estranged? Brother Pei has already said he will take care of us. Su Jie's voice was very loud, clearly audible to the entire line of riders, and an unknown number of disciples cast envious glances their way. If they could obtain Pei Haibing's care, this journey would undoubtedly be much safer. Gu Weonian and Chen Yun, having been called out by Su Jie, looked at each other and could only cautiously ride their horses over and exchange a few polite words with Pei Haibing. However, all they received in return was Pei Haibing's cold gaze. Brother Pei, we won't disturb you any further then. After that, Su Jie took Gu Weonian and Chen Yun back to the rear of the column. It wasn't until then that Gu Weonian finally could not help but say, Brother Su, does doing this actually help? Just saying a few nice words won't really make him let us off, right? Do you think that's possible? I think it's not very likely. Gu Weonian thought about it. Pei Haibing did not seem like someone easy to talk to. Otherwise, why would he intentionally assign the three of them to the task under his command if not for retribution? With opposition comes resistance. With difficulty come solutions. Fear won't solve anything. Chen Yun had much more backbone than Gu Weonian, perhaps because she had once returned from the brink of death at Ghost Gate and thus had a more relaxed view of death. Look at Chen Yun's resolve, Brother Gu. You should be more composed. Watching the silhouette of Pei Haibing ahead, Su Jie's face bore a smile that was not quite a smile. You ask why I do this, of course. It's to tell the other disciples traveling with us that we have a great relationship with Brother Pei. There was something Su Jie left unsaid, which was that if Pei Haibing had any accidental incidents, it couldn't be connected to him. After all, he and Brother Pei had a close-as-brothers relationship. Inner disciples having some mishaps, such as accidental falls leading to death, wasn't that a normal occurrence? Like what happened to Feng Wenjin? Who says inner disciples can't have accidents? Gu Weonian and Chen Yun beside him couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Su Jie's seemingly humorous smile reminded them of a similar expression on his face when he had outwitted Meng Dongge in the past. Galip glop! The crisp sound of horse hooves echoed through the forest. After more than a day of traveling, Su Jie and his group of several dozen people had moved away from near the mountain gate of Ghost Ridge Palace and had entered the outer area. That is Cloud Mist Mountain. Mounted on a horned scale horse, Su Jie held a map in his hand and looked towards a mountain over 6,000 meters high. This mountain was lofty, with clouds twisting around its middle and its form imposing and extraordinary, resembling a crouching Pishio overseeing the mortal realm. Eerie shrieks emitted from the mountain periodically. Residing on this mountain were a male and a female golden-winged Luan bird, whose strength was terrifying. Even when the sect master of Ghost Ridge Palace had led a team to encircle and suppress them, he had been unable to subdue these two spiritual beasts. Fortunately, these two golden-winged Luan birds had mild temperaments and usually stayed around Cloud Mist Mountain, coexisting peacefully with Ghost Ridge Palace. As long as the disciples did not invade their territory, there generally was no danger. After walking tens of miles, Su Jie and the others arrived at a strange region. Ahead, the ground was scorched and yellowed. Numerous pitch-black holes were scattered haphazardly, from which a foul-smelling black smoke rose slowly and sinister shadows flickered within the holes. This place also had an unusual type of flower, blood-red in color, with blooms half a meter in diameter when fully opened, extremely delicate and beautiful. Dismount and pass quietly. With a serious expression, Pei Haibing dismounted, gripping the reins and muffling the horse's mouth as he cautiously stepped into this eerie land. The disciples followed suit, leading their horses carefully by the reins. Earth Shadow Cave, ranked among the top 10 most dangerous places within the domain of Ghost Ridge Palace. This was also Su Jie's first time here. In the continuous mountain range where Ghost Ridge Palace was situated, this Earth Shadow Cave was indeed well known. It was one of the main transit points to the outer world, and over the years, countless lives had been lost here. Su Jie had seen numerous human skeletons half buried in the ground. Alien ghost, we have alien ghosts behind us. As the group was halfway through Earth Shadow Cave, an unexpected event occurred. Several alien ghosts appeared within sight. The disciples began to panic at the sight of the alien ghosts. Fear was evident in many of the disciples' eyes. Some, driven by instinct, quickened their steps, only to miss one and step half into a hole. The falling rocks made a noise, and the black smoke in the holes immediately changed. The black smoke surged out violently, as if alive, coiling around this disciple like a creature. Within the smoke, strands of black fungal filaments spread out, invading the disciple's eyes, mouth, nose, ears, and other parts of his body, filling him with spores. Shortly after, he was dragged into the hole, without even having time to cry out. A minute later, a new hole appeared nearby, and green vines grew out of it, bearing buds of bright red flowers waiting to bloom. Through the holes in the ground, the disciple who had been devoured was now entwined and covered with white fungal filaments, with vines emerging from his eyes and mouth, serving as nutrients for the flowers. Seeing this scene, the remaining disciples felt a chill in their limbs and dared not make any noise. Fortunately, the alien ghosts also feared the dangerous land of Earth Shadow Cave and merely lingered outside without entering. Otherwise, a battle here would have made too much noise, and both sides would have been swallowed up by Earth Shadow Cave entirely. Because they dared not make any noise, everyone moved slowly and took a half-hour to finally get through Earth Shadow Cave. After leaving Earth Shadow Cave, they walked for another 2 hours, and the sky was almost dark. Su Jie and his group of several dozen people found a flat area, tied the horned scale horses to trees, and began setting up tents to camp. Under the night sky, the disciples who had been traveling for a whole day were mostly exhausted and asleep under the cover of night. Only a few disciples on night duty were sitting around a campfire to keep warm. At this time, winter had already set in. Although it had not yet started snowing, the temperature was very low, making the cold night wind especially hard to endure. This damn weather. If it weren't for the mission, I'd still be sleeping in a warm bed right now, one grumbled. Tell me about it. We've only been out for a little more than a day, and we've already lost a brother. Once we're out of Ghost Ridge Palace territory, if the righteous sect discovers us, who knows how many of us will die, another added. As the disciples heated themselves by the fire, they complained, but they remained vigilant, having set up numerous noise traps around, continuously scanning the surroundings to monitor any movement around the campsite. Being in the dangerous wilderness, having a sense of alertness could save lives. Yet, despite their vigilance, an accident still happened. While the disciples were talking, several vague, towering dark shadows were approaching stealthily from the darkness not illuminated by the fire. Crack! A disciple heard a noise and was about to turn to check when he saw several alien ghosts lunging out of the darkness. Enemy attack! The disciples on guard screamed in shock. They hadn't expected that with so many of them, alien ghosts would still venture to launch a night attack. The screams disturbed the entire camp. As the fire flickered, disciples sleeping in their armor rushed out of their tents, only to see the shapes of alien ghosts. A bunch of useless fools, you can't even keep watch properly, Pei Haibing said, his face frosty. Instead of dealing with the alien ghosts, he confronted the disciples responsible for standing guard first. Of the 5 disciples who were originally on duty, only 2 had survived. Were you on guard tonight? Pei Haibing's gaze settled on them. The 2 disciples, with expressions of having narrowly escaped death, nodded repeatedly. Brother Pei, we didn't know how the alien ghosts got so close. We had the perimeter secured. But then, before they could explain further, Pei Haibing had already made his move. His slender, pale hands shot out like lightning, instantly crushing the necks of the 2 disciples, cutting off any further explanations. The useless only look for excuses, Pei Haibing coldly stated as he flung away the corpses of the 2 disciples who died with their eyes wide open. Finish off these alien ghosts. What are you standing around for? The disciples hurriedly turned away, not daring to look anymore, and focused on dealing with the alien ghosts. One by one, poisonous insects were summoned, swarming towards the alien ghosts. There were 4 alien ghosts that had appeared this time, while there were more than 50 disciples, more than 10 times the number of the alien ghosts. Despite the powerful combat abilities of the alien ghosts, the difference in numbers was too great. The disciples gained the upper hand in the fight, and 2 of the alien ghosts were quickly torn apart by the poisonous insects, the toxins overwhelming their bodies and ending their lives right there. The remaining 2 alien ghosts, seeing that things were going badly and being not low in intelligence, immediately turned and fled. They jumped into a hole outside the forest and disappeared from sight in a blink. The disciples surrounding the alien ghosts looked at each other and at the hole before them, none daring to jump down to pursue. Su Jie stepped out from the crowd, waved a torch inside the hole, and pinched some fresh soil near the hole, saying, "These are the alien ghosts that appeared in the Earth Shadow Cave during the day. They are quite clever, following our trail here and having learned to dig tunnels there, approaching us undetected in this manner." At this statement, the disciples exchanged strange looks, astonished at Su Jie's audacity. His words were tantamount to slapping Pei Haibing in the face on the spot. Just before, Pei Haibing had killed 2 guard disciples indiscriminately, but it turned out that those killed weren't negligent in their duties. They just hadn't expected the alien ghosts would launch an attack from underground, a scenario no one had anticipated, making their deaths truly unjust. Pei Haibing's gaze was cold and indifferent. Hearing Su Jie's words, he slowly walked over to Su Jie. Swish! Swish! As Pei Haibing passed by, the disciples made way for him, fearful of becoming collateral damage. "You have an opinion on the way I handle things?" Pei Haibing's eyes drooped. The 2 disciples he had previously killed were completely unworthy of an apology in his eyes. "Of course not, Brother Pei. I can only admire the way you handle matters," said Su Jie with a bright smile, brushing the dirt off his hands as he stood up. Chen Yun and Gu Weonian watched the scene worriedly, afraid that Pei Haibing would, without a second word, kill Su Jie like he did the 2 other disciples. "What about you all? Does anyone else have an opinion?" Pei Haibing's sharp gaze swept over the surrounding area as each disciple promptly lowered their heads. Who would dare say a word? Only if they were tired of living. "On this journey, without me, what could you all do? Once we're outside Ghost Ridge Palace, I am your greatest reliance. Today, I'm going to teach you all a lesson. As long as you have strength, even if I kill you by mistake, you'll still have to beg me for protection. If you're going to be a dog, you'd better understand your place and not think you can stand on equal footing with your master." With such arrogant words, Pei Haibing didn't even regard the outer disciples as human. They were merely tools to be used and easily disposed of. The disciples still dared not raise their heads, even if they were furious inside. Facing the power disparity with an inner sect disciple, they had no choice but to listen to Pei Haibing's demeaning speech. "As for you," Pei Haibing's gaze once again fell on Su Jie. Suddenly he patted Su Jie on the shoulder and said, "I don't like the way you speak. You should learn more from me. As for these outer disciples, it doesn't matter how many of them die." This abrupt change stunned all the disciples present. No one had expected the previously ruthless Pei Haibing to suddenly show Su Jie in such a different light. For a moment, many disciples looked at Su Jie differently, wondering if the 2 of them truly had a close and unbreakable bond. Otherwise, why would Pei Haibing speak to Su Jie, an outer disciple, like that? "Brother Pei, I understand what you're saying, but I'm a rather kind person by nature. I can't do such things." Su Jie laughed, and behind him, Gu Weonian's face twitched. How could you have the nerve to say such things? If Meng Donga had known, he might have risen from his grave to protest. Pei Haibing's hand grew slightly heavier on Su Jie's shoulder, perhaps sensing the sarcasm in Su Jie's words about his malicious methods. He spoke indifferently. "You will understand what I'm saying in time." Su Jie was also an outer disciple, and Pei Haibing's words, showing blatant disregard for the life and death of outer disciples, meant that he could kill Su Jie at will. "Thank you then, Brother Pei, for your guidance. I will seek your advice in the future," said Su Jie, his smile undiminished. seemingly not understanding the veiled threat, because he was certain that Pei Haibing wouldn't make a move at such an occasion. Pei Haibing said nothing more. Instead, he began storing the bodies of the alien ghosts in his waist storage bag. Although he had exerted no effort in the battle with the alien ghosts, Pei Haibing was at the forefront when it came to claiming the spoils of war, with a face that said it was only natural. Each alien ghost was worth over 1,000 blood marrow crystals, causing the envy of countless disciples. Pei Haibing didn't care what the outer disciples thought, simply minded his own business and left. However, just as he entered his tent, Pei Haibing's expression suddenly changed. If it weren't for the master valuing you so much. With cold eyes, Pei Haibing remembered, it was only because Master Taoist Chiu highly regarded Su Jie that he dared not act against Su Jie to his face, instead maintaining an outwardly brotherly facade. Especially since not long ago, Su Jie had made Taoist Chiu proud. Taoist Chiu had personally bestowed the white-bone sky-slaying sword upon Su Jie, and even said he would remember Su Jie's name, a great honor. If Pei Haibing were to kill Su Jie in the presence of others without restraint, and the news reached Taoist Chiu's ears, it would be like a slap to Taoist Chiu's face, and Pei Haibing's fate would be very grim indeed. Therefore, after much deliberation, Pei Haibing would not move against Su Jie to his face. But not for much longer. As soon as we leave the domain of Ghost Ridge Palace, your fate will no longer be up to you. Pei Haibing murmured coldly to himself that once he left Ghost Ridge Palace, he could easily arrange some accidents for Su Jie to die in, leaving no one the wiser. What a pity that Pei Haibing did not know he was not the only one with such thoughts. Oh! After a night of harrowing experiences, the team continued their journey the next day. For another 2 days, they traveled through the mountains, passing across treacherous terrains and checkpoints guarded by the law enforcement team. Perhaps luck was on their side. Ever since the encounter with the alien ghosts that night, the convoy had not run into a single one, unbelievably reaching the very edge of Ghost Ridge Palace's domain without incident. Sigh. Su Jie pulled at the reins and looked up. Blocking their path was the last checkpoint before leaving Ghost Ridge Palace's domain. If one wished to leave Ghost Ridge Palace, this was the easiest route to take. The other exits involved treacherous locations teeming with demons and alien ghosts, places even the elders of Ghost Ridge Palace would avoid like the plague. At the checkpoint, 3 towering watchtowers stood imposingly beside the mountain path. On these 100-meter-high stone towers, not only did the elite law enforcement team stand guard, but 3 elders also took turns overseeing the area. The towers themselves provided both living quarters and defensive capabilities. Once a battle commenced, the multiple formations carved into the towers would activate, repelling any invading forces. Beneath the towers, being the sole passageway between Ghost Ridge Palace and the outside world, traders weary from travel often made temporary stops to rest and prepare before embarking on their journey to the Ghost Ridge Palace black market. Over time, a small town camp formed nearby, modest in structure but fully equipped. Upon entering the town, Su Jie's convoy did not stop to rest but continued through the town to the checkpoint formed by the 3 high towers. They were quickly subjected to inspection. Another batch transporting slaves for Luyun Manor? How many has it been now? Dressed in red uniforms that reeked of blood, several members of the law enforcement team flipped through the task tokens, and upon verification, one of them picked up a snail. This snail's spiral shell featured a ghostly face that seemed to slowly revolve upon closer inspection, its faint crimson eyes nearly sucking one's soul into its vortex. Su Jie's heart skipped a beat as he dared not look any longer. Suspecting this was a mid-grade poisonous insect. Everyone, release any restrictions on your spiritual power, including you. The law enforcement team spoke in an icy tone, showing no courtesy even to an inner disciple like Pei Haibing. Answerable only to the sect master and possessing strength starting from the 6th level of Yunling realm and above, the team could easily disregard inner disciples, often holding even greater authority than those less experienced ones. Once everyone deactivated the automatic circulation of spiritual energy within their bodies, the law enforcement team member holding the snail smeared its secreted mucus onto the skin of the disciples. Su Jie felt a chill on his skin. Without the defense of spiritual power, An odd gas penetrated his body and quickly dispersed throughout his limbs and bones. This is a red-eyed ghost-faced snail, a mid-grade poisonous insect. Once its mucus is applied, no matter the distance, it can track the scent. So don't think just because you've left Ghost Ridge Palace, you're free as a bird and can think of escaping never to return. Our execution order is still valid outside the domain of Ghost Ridge Palace. There's only one path for traitors: death. After dropping the chilling warning, the law enforcement team waved their hands, signaling the convoy to move along. Su Jie barely had time to contemplate the strictness of Ghost Ridge Palace as he passed through the last checkpoint, and suddenly, his view became startlingly clear. No longer surrounded by towering mountains, the vast plains stretched before him beneath the brilliant blue sky. The grass was soft and lush, like a vast yet delicate green carpet extending to the horizon. Qingzhou, the Dali dynasty's largest grain-producing plain, lives up to its reputation. Seeing a landscape never visible from within Ghost Ridge Palace's domain, Su Jie looked back at the rugged mountain path wrapped in clouds, the continuous range of peaks, and realized Ghost Ridge Palace really was like a different world. For some reason, looking out at the vast plain before him, Su Jie felt a surge of boldness within. In the half-year since his accidental arrival at Ghost Ridge Palace, this was Su Jie's first time venturing out. Unknowingly, he had grown from someone who could only hide in cave dwellings at the mountain gate, constantly hunting insects and worrying about surviving the next day, to someone not bounded by the constraints of the second level of Yunling realm. I wonder what the outside world will be like. Breathing the exceptionally fresh air, Su Jie realized that book knowledge was shallow after all. Only by seeing with his own eyes could he truly understand the outside world. Riding on horned scale horses, a group of people stepped into the vast plain. Looking around, the terrain was flat and expansive. Although the weather was bone-chillingly cold, various wildflowers and wild grasses on the plain still stood resilient, swaying uncertainly in the cold wind. It's indeed much safer outside. Having traveled a distance, Su Jie and the others hadn't encountered any dangers, unlike the perilous environments within the borders of Ghost Ridge Palace. This was also easy to understand. Good territories were always occupied by the powerful. No one coveted poor and inhospitable lands. In the history of Blue Star Hua country, fertile and expansive plains were always occupied by the Zhongyuan dynasty, while ethnic minorities mostly lived in resource-poor areas of mountains, snowfields, and high altitudes. Was it because they didn't want to live in the comfortable climate and resource-rich plains? Of course not, it was simply because they couldn't defeat the Zhongyuan dynasty. The same logic applied to Ghost Ridge Palace. Nowadays, with the righteous sects flourishing and powerful, Ghost Ridge Palace could only reluctantly settle in the mountains, amidst pervasive crises, harsh environments, and scarce resources. In the past, during the prime of the demon path, various demon cultivation sects had also occupied the fertile plains. Few people preferred the environment of deep mountains and old forests. Even in cultivation, aside from some spiritual mountain-blessed lands, people preferred staying in the plains. Walking on the plain without the rugged mountain paths and steep cliffs, the disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace could finally let go of the reins and gallop across the grassland on their horses, increasing their speed by more than tenfold. In half a day's effort, everyone crossed the grassland plain and could already see signs of human habitation. Smoke curled upward from cooking fires, and a small village appeared in their view. Peasants were tending the fields, women spun and picked mulberry, children played and frolicked, chickens crowed and dogs barked, neighbors heard each other. Su Jie and the others passed near the village on their horned scale horses. Thud, thud. The village bell was rung as a peasant working in the field spotted the group of dozens of horsemen. Immediately changed expression, ran back to the village to give the alarm, shouting about bandits and the like. It turned out that they mistook Su Jie and his companions for marauding bandits. Young and strong villagers came running out with pitchforks and hoes, warily eyeing the passing group of dozens of horsemen. This road wasn't frequently traveled by the Ghost Ridge Palace's black market caravan. It was densely populated and congested with visitors, so typically, black market caravans took detours, but this time, due to the task at hand, Su Jie and his companions had to take this relatively unfamiliar shortcut. Looking at the small village of over 300 people before him, Pei Haibing's fingers twitched slightly. His eyes filled with bloodthirsty greed. Ultimately, he restrained the impulse to attack the village. They still had a task to complete, and engaging in such an act would cause a huge commotion, quickly alerting the local government, and even leading to a siege by reputable sects, a surefire way to court disaster. Try to avoid densely populated areas and choose less traveled paths. Pei Haibing issued a new order, perhaps noting that his group was attracting too much attention. Following the map's directions, the horsemen set off again, this time avoiding crowded areas and taking more secluded roads. Although they still encountered villages and travelers along the way, the frequency was significantly reduced. Su Jie rode on horseback, contemplating the world outside as described in the books. The location where Su Jie and his companions now found themselves was within the borders of Dili Dynasty, Qingzhou, Jiaxiao Prefecture. Qingzhou was the largest grain-producing area of the Dili Dynasty, with a population too large to qualify as sparse. Especially in the backward Tianyuan world, a large population was needed to maintain farm operations. Despite the cultivators possessing various divine powers and magic techniques, they never demeaned themselves by engaging in agricultural production. The lower-class commoners naturally couldn't rely on such conveniences. They could only depend on human labor and water buffalo-driven mills. Ahead is Shaoshan Town. We're running low on supplies. We need to go there to purchase goods. Those who are called out by name will be responsible for the shopping. Pei Haibing ordered as he pulled the troop to a halt for rest after 3 days, also arranging their tasks. This was indeed a fact. Not every disciple had a storage bag equipped. Almost all outer disciples lacked this item, and supplies had to be carried by the team. The constant travel had already depleted most of it, and replenishment was indeed necessary. Su Jie, Su Tu, Chen Qinan. Pei Haibing called out 7 or 8 names, including coincidentally, Su Jie, Gu Weionian, and Chen Yun. Brother Pei, we're on our way. Bowing, Su Jie didn't say anything else. He turned his horse toward Shaoshan Town, the named disciples following in suit. Half an hour later, Su Jie could see Shaoshan Town marked on the map from afar. It was a moderately sized town, mostly surrounded by land cultivated by the townspeople, who were wearing rather thin clothes as they worked in the fields. A glow of spiritual power. Standing on a small dirt mound, Su Jie saw fluctuations of spiritual energy to the southeast of Shaoshan Town. There lay a faint spirit land where the veins of the earth were permeating the surface with spiritual power, suitable for cultivating some ordinary spirit grain. Su Jie's vision was quite good. He could clearly see the nearby spirit field with towering buildings, flying eaves, and couplets hanging between them. Moreover, there were some cultivators with spiritual power tending to the fields. Some were employing a rainmaking technique, with small clusters of dark clouds forming above the spirit field, drizzling rain mixed with spiritual power onto the land. Others enslaved a kind of burrowing worm that easily turned over acres of soil to plant spirit plant seeds. Some were carefully protecting the fields, with a formation in place above the spirit field that prevented insects and birds from pecking. The span of the spirit field was not very large, at most just over 80 acres, and there were only a few cultivators managing it, which was starkly different from the labor-intensive ordinary fields. Let's go over there. Su Jie led the way into Shaoshan Town. The town was primarily built of wooden structures, and families that could afford to live in bluestone brick houses were relatively wealthy locals. From what Su Jie could see, most of the townspeople weren't living well. It wasn't that they couldn't survive, but the paleness of their faces and their numb expressions said enough. Even in the dead of winter, they were still clad in thin clothing, and most families were struggling to get by, barely subsisting above the poverty line. Time to pay the monthly fee. The autumn harvest ended a half a month ago. Anyone who hasn't paid up yet, make it snappy. Just as they entered the town, Su Jie witnessed a bizarre scene. A group of arrogant individuals were going door to door, knocking and announcing. Su Jie didn't ask further and headed directly to the town's grain shop, only to see a long queue forming there. A large number of townspeople had carts filled with sacks of grain, paying their dues to several men who looked like managers. "Ah, the Chu family's fee has gone up again this year. What can we do? We've still got to pay the fee. Hopefully they'll weigh less on the scales." Expecting the Chu family to be charitable is like seeing a pink elephant in your dreams. The townspeople discussed quietly among themselves, and the arrival of Su Jie and his group as outsiders attracted quite a few glances. "Didn't expect we'd have to pay a fee here too." Gu Weonian seemed quite sentimental, reminded of the monthly fee he paid to Taoist Chiu every month. These townspeople aren't living any better, barely getting enough food and clothing. It's only on paper that everyone has plenty to eat and wear. Chen Yun scoffed. Ghost Ridge Palace received many books from the outside world stored in the book collection pavilion, which included non-cultivation-related books accessible to ordinary disciples. Those books were mostly written by scholars of the Dali dynasty, depicting Dali as a peaceful and prosperous kingdom where swords were sheathed, wars ceased, and the citizens lived comfortably and contentedly. But taking Shaoshan Town as a microcosm, it was clear the people were barely clothed and fed, burdened with heavy land fees, far from living comfortably. "Hey, where are you folks from? Do you know this is Chu family territory? Keep spouting nonsense, and I'll smash that ugly face of yours." A grain shop manager, who just happened to pass by, overheard Chun Yun's comments and immediately glared hostilely. Chun Yun's face darkened. Ever since Su Jie had saved her life, several centipede-like scars had marred her face. Being a woman, she was particularly sensitive to comments about her appearance. "What nonsense, Chu family. They're just a local tyrant of a small town." Chun Yun suppressed her urge to kill and simply kicked the Chu family manager, sending him flying. This action stirred up a hornet's nest as several Chu family managers began shouting around. Others tried to continue the trouble but were promptly sent scrambling by Chen Yun charging at them on horseback. "Let's grab some supplies from the shop and prepare to leave." Su Jie did not stop Chen Yun's impulsive action, and as he spoke, his eyes caught a glimpse of a honey bee flying across the street. "We shouldn't engage in a big fight here. Let's move quickly." Su Jie watched as Chen Yun and a few others entered the store to fetch supplies. That so-called Chu family was clearly the owner of the spirit field. They were used to throwing their weight around in the town. Today, they hadn't expected to be beaten by newcomers, and surely they wouldn't let it go. If one wished to avoid trouble, it would be wise to leave as soon as possible. Su Jie did not participate in gathering supplies. Instead, he strolled around the town. "Uncle, may I know your name? I'm a businessman from out of town. I'm a bit thirsty after my travels. Could I trouble you for a bowl of water at your place?" Su Jie stopped an old farmer who had just finished tilling the land and was carrying his hoe back to his house. His face crisscrossed with deep wrinkles. "Everyone just calls me Old Man Chen. You look like you come from a wealthy family, as long as you don't mind our humble little home." Old Man Chen was slightly taken aback. Then he pushed open the door to his house and invited Su Jie inside. The interior of the house was simple, with a set of old and damaged furniture, and a corner rice bin piled with coarse grains, not many in quantity. There were other people in the house too, an old woman with white hair lying on a bed in an inner room, fast asleep. In addition, there were 5 children, the oldest about 12 or 13 years old and the youngest 3 or 4. Curious yet somewhat fearful, the children hid inside the house and took furtive glances at Su Jie, the unfamiliar guest, through a crack in the door. "We don't have much to offer. If you're really thirsty." Old Man Chen was somewhat restrained as he brought over a bowl of water. The bowl was chipped in several places. Perhaps feeling embarrassed to present it, Old Man Chen's dark face flushed slightly. Su Jie took the bowl and drained it in one gulp. Wiping his mouth, he smiled and said, "Uncle, what are you talking about? We who travel and trade in the wilderness drink from rivers when we're thirsty. Why should I be so finicky?" Old Man Chen sighed in relief. Seeing that Su Jie was easy to talk to, he relaxed and called out to the inner room, "Erlang, mind your siblings and don't disturb the honored guest." Su Jie pat himself down and, secretly from his storage bag, took out a bag of unwrapped candy, slipping it into the hands of the children and patting their heads. "Take these candies to eat." Oh, this isn't right." The children's faces lit up with joy, but Old Man Chun repeatedly tried to refuse. "It's fine, we're fated to have met. Besides, I have to ask the uncle here some questions." Su Jie waved his hand, and Old Man Chun, unable to stop him, let the children go out to play. "Thank you, big brother." The children sweetly called out their thanks, delightedly running out the door. In the Tianyuan world, just like in ancient times on Blue Star, sugar was a precious commodity. These children rarely had the chance to taste something sweet. Putting down the bowl, Su Jie started to ask, "I'd like to inquire about this Chu family from you, uncle. I've noticed many people in the town paying rent to them. Are your fields not your own?" Old Man Chen's face darkened as he said, "Not to deceive you, young master, in our Shaoshan town, those who still own their fields are few and far between. That accursed Chu family hired experts from the big city to cast spells, diverting local underground water veins to the spirit field, forcing us to rent from them because we haven't water to irrigate our lands. Otherwise, we can only watch helplessly as our fields yield nothing." Su Jie pondered in his heart. Major sects generally look down on the trivial produce of commoners, but it's different for the smaller households of cultivators. By consolidating land and making the populous tenants, they could amass a large output of grain. Grain could be exchanged for gold and silver are related to artifact refining materials. Although the value was low, for cultivators of small households, it was entirely possible to exchange gold and silver for cultivation resources, making it a very decent way to realize assets. After a moment of reflection, Su Jie asked, "Doesn't the government care?" The Chu family is a major local clan. For generations, they produce scholars, and some of their people hold office in the city. "I see." Su Jie nodded and continued to query Old Man Chun about the situation in Shaoshan town. "Child, why are there strangers at home? Could it be the government officials have come to collect the demon extermination tax again? Haven't we already paid it this year?" Just then, an elderly woman with white hair fumbled her way out from the inner room, awakened by the conversation between the two. She was Old Man Chen's mother. The old lady walked unsteadily, with a vacant look in her eyes. It was clear she could no longer see clearly. "Mother, it's not that, we have a guest at home." Old Man Chun quickly helped his mother back to her bed, afraid that she would fall because she couldn't see the path. When Old Man Chun had returned, Su Jie curiously asked, "Uncle, what is this demon extermination tax that the elder mentioned?" "Ah, you don't know, young master?" Old Man Chun was taken aback and then smacked his forehead. "I almost forgot, with your background, young master. Surely the tax doesn't fall upon you. The demon extermination tax is imposed by the Jia Shao government. They claim it's to guard against the havoc wrought by the demon Ghost Ridge Palace on the common folk. They collect this tax to train armies, with the aim of securing peace for the realm and eradicating the cancer that is the Ghost Ridge Palace once and for all. The tax is especially burdensome, and each year we have to dish out quite a bit of our wealth to cover it. However, I've heard that if a family has produced a cultivator, then they can be exempt from this tax. It's said that since cultivators contribute to the fight against the Ghost Ridge Palace, there's no need for them to pay taxes. I'm sure someone from your family must have practiced cultivation, right?" "Ah, something like that." Having heard this, Su Jie was speechless and, at the same time, a certain phrase came to mind involuntarily. "We certainly lack the guts to wipe out the bandits, yet we have the audacity, and quite substantial at that, to amass wealth under the pretext of doing so. The Demon Ghost Ridge Palace has taken root in the mountains for so many years, and Su Jie had neither heard nor seen any government troops entering the mountains. On the contrary, the prosperity of the black market at the Ghost Ridge Palace likely had much to do with the local government's laissez-faire approach. As the topic of the demon extermination tax grew somber, Old Man Chen's mood sank. Seeing his state, Su Jie did not continue to bother him, and suggested that he should take his leave. Before leaving, Su Jie discreetly placed a piece of broken silver beneath the water bowl, then departed from the place. By the time Su Jie returned to the shop and grain store, Chen Yun and the others had already gathered the supplies, loading them onto the horned scale horses. It was unexpected how quickly the Chu family had mobilized. Just as Su Jie and his companions were about to mount their horses and leave, a large group of Chu family members blocked their path. Esteemed heavenly masters, it was they who assaulted our Chu family members. Among this group of Chu family members, several cultivators distinguished by their elegant clothing adorned with embroidered patterns and silk bandanas emerged, exuding an air of nobility. The one at the lead had the appearance of an ancient, with the poise of both a dragon and a tiger, and eyes that shone with vitality, creating the image of a venerable person. I am Lu Feng, the sacrificial elder of the Chu family. Who might you young ones be apprenticed to, and what brings you here? Speak the truth promptly, or else do not blame me for being discourteous. With a cold snort, Lu Feng guessed that Su Jie and his companions possessed cultivation. Yet he did not fear them. Instead, he demonstrated his power, allowing his spiritual power to surge unabashedly within him. His cultivation was at the Yunling realm 2nd level. The fluctuation of spiritual power was not like a tidal wave but more like a refreshing breeze brushing against the face. The cultivators following Lu Feng did the same, proudly releasing their spiritual power fluctuations. And these individuals were even more formidable, each possessing the cultivation of the Yunling realm 1st level. The expressions of Su Jie and his group were peculiar, especially Chen Yun, who had previously engaged in the fight. She had thought that Lu Feng was a great hidden expert living discreetly in town, with cultivation no less than her master, Taoist Qiu of the secret realm. Yet, after this introduction, such modest ability proved anticlimactic, and all of her fright had been for naught. It's too late to regret now. All of you, stay right where you are. Seeing that Su Jie and his group remained silent, Lu Feng stroked his white beard, thinking they had been intimidated. I thought you had some real strength. To dare call yourself a heavenly master with such skills. Chen Yun didn't even know where to begin her criticism. A heavenly master at the 2nd level of Yunling realm, what a grandiose facade. She had actually been startled for a moment and had made too much of a small issue. Gu Weonian couldn't help but snicker and said, "Staying here, he must have grown accustomed to flattery. After all, it's just a small town. It's already remarkable to have cultivators here." Su Jie shook his head. Shaoshan Town was just a small place. Those who could stay here were mostly cultivators with poor talent and resources. Truly talented and formidable individuals would have long joined various sects or entered into major clans and noble families, or else they would forge their own enterprises. Who would lack such ambition to domineer in a small town? The current situation made sense. If a place as small as Shaoshan Town could produce cultivators at the 4th or 5th level of Yunling realm, Ghost Ridge Palace would have been trampled flat long ago. It wouldn't have stood for so many years. Those on par with Ghost Ridge Palace disciples were mostly elite disciples from renowned sects, righteous sects. A place like Shaoshan Town at best could be considered a breeding ground for loose cultivators, lacking talent and resources, a far cry from higher echelons. Su Jie didn't plan to delay any further and addressed Lu Feng. If you're sensible, clear the way now, and I can pretend this never happened. Lu Feng, with his head held high, thought Su Jie had chickened out and arrogantly said, "You expect to leave after offending our Chu family? Without kneeling and knocking your head on the ground several times. Offering a batch of compensation gifts? I won't be so easy to talk to." Seeking death. Chen Yun was very displeased with Lu Feng's disrespect towards Su Jie, and immediately charged forward to teach the old man a lesson and vent Su Jie's anger. "How audacious, a bunch of juniors! Let me teach you how to respect your elders and the way of the Taoist. How dare you be so disrespectful to your seniors?" Lu Feng bellowed when he saw Chen Yun daring to confront him. He angrily clapped his hands together with a swift motion. Tianyuan inversion. Spiritual power burst forth from Lu Feng's palms, transforming into a surging river. Unfortunately, due to his inadequate spiritual power, the technique lacked force, far from the dominance of a great river and more resembling the gentle flow of a stream. It was shockingly lethal to ordinary people, but against a group of demon cultivators, it was nothing more than a futile effort. Chen Yun took the lead. Without even employing her Mingshang bat, she dispersed the stream of spiritual power with her enhanced punches and kicks, then closed in on Lu Feng. Lu Feng's complexion underwent a drastic change, losing his earlier composure, and he cried out in panic, "Quickly come help me. These people are not easy to handle." While calling for help, he struck rapidly with both hands while reciting incantations. "Behold my palm thunder." Crack! Electric currents danced between his fingers, striking out at Chen Yun. Chen Yun reined in her steed to dodge the palm thunder. The sizzling electricity, accompanied by static, grazed the neck of the horned scale horse, causing its mane to stand on end, before her hand landed on the wall beside the street, smashing several bricks and leaving behind a charred handprint. With that level of power, Lu Feng still had the gall to boast, "Ha ha! You see the might of the palm thunder now, do you? Kneel and surrender quickly if you don't want to suffer." Su Jie stroked his chin and made a judgment. His spiritual power isn't pure enough. The cultivation technique he's practicing is no good. At the same second-level cultivation of the Yunling realm, if Su Jie knew the palm thunder, its power would be 2 to 3 times stronger than the old man's. Overestimating oneself. Chen Yun pulled out her horsewhip while on horseback, infused it with spiritual power, and lashed down fiercely. Timing it perfectly with the arrival of another palm thunder, she struck Lu Feng's leg with her whip, sending him tumbling to the ground. "My leg!" Lu Feng screamed in agony, clutching his broken thigh. It seemed he hadn't suffered much in his daily life, as such a minor injury had him crying out as if it were life-threatening. The cultivators following Lu Feng hadn't reacted yet, and were just about to come forward to help when they saw their leader being whipped over, followed by the lash of a whip that left them howling like ghosts and wolves. Even the Chu family members who came with them were whipped to the ground. In the blink of an eye, the entire scene was overturned by Chen Yun alone. Although the whip couldn't withstand the continuous use and started breaking inch by inch, it was already enough, as there were no longer any Chu family members who could stand before her. How should these people be dealt with? Chen Yun looked towards Su Jie, expecting him to make a decision. The other disciples did the same, since in their opinion, not only did Su Jie master the white-bone sky-slaying sword, he also had a deep friendship with Pei Haibing. In Pei Haibing's absence, the disciples looked to Su Jie for leadership. Just loot them and leave. Su Jie understood Chen Yun's intention and shook his head. They had come to purchase supplies, so a fight was normal and no one would delve deeply into it. If they killed someone, however, things could get out of hand easily. If they attracted the attention of a righteous sect, the repercussions could be severe. Chen Yun nodded and dismounted to loot a few cultivators of their resources. But these poor sods really had nothing, with poverty written all over them, hardly possessing any worthwhile cultivation resources. After all, if they were reduced to being the local landlord's sacrifices in some backwater town, how rich could they be? "How dare you do this to us? I am a member of the Chu family. Our family has a powerhouse at the 3rd level of Yunling realm studying under the Purple Mist sect. If you offend our Chu family," Lu Feng, who was being robbed, cried out more sorrowfully than when his leg broke, desperately clutching his money pouch. "A big shot at the 3rd level of Yunling realm, huh? It seems your Chu family isn't good for much apart from boasting, which you seem unrivaled in." Chen Yun would not indulge the other party, kicking Lu Feng until he coughed up blood and became listless. Seeing that Chen Yun meant business, the others obediently offered their money to avoid further beating. After a thorough plunder, Chen Yun only managed to loot some worthless cultivation materials. Even the elixirs and talismans were defective products sold off due to their flaws. The only thing that caught her eye was 5 low-grade spirit stones. This was a commonly used cultivation material in the outside world. The spirit stones contained abundant natural spiritual power, which could speed up one's cultivation. They served a similar purpose and held nearly the same value as blood marrow crystals. The only difference was that blood marrow crystals were suitable for demon path cultivation, while spirit stones could be used by both the righteous and demon cultivators. For this reason, spirit stones were the hard currency of Tianyuan world, serving as the general mainstream currency among cultivators. Chen Yun returned to Su Jie's side, intending to give him the spirit stones she had looted. "Keep them for yourself." Su Jie waved his hands, then asked Chen Yun, "Have you advanced to the 5th level of Yunling realm now?" During the battle, Su Jie noticed that Chen Yun's displayed strength suggested she had possibly broken through to the 5th level of Yunling realm. "Thanks to the blood marrow crystals last time, my life-bound poisonous insect made a breakthrough, and as a result, so have I." Chen Yun was far from complacent. She originally possessed cultivation at the Yunling realm 4th level, and her life-bound poisonous insect was the rare Ming Shang bat, which was considered talented among the disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace. Now, over 2 months later, with the batch of blood marrow crystals provided by Su Jie, her Ming Shang bat had advanced to a low-grade poisonous insect, and it was very normal for her to boost her cultivation to the 5th level of Yunling realm. Su Jie nodded and then turned to look at Gu Weonian. Gu Weonian, with a wry smile, spread his hands and said, "I'm getting old, and my potential is nearly exhausted. I still can't break through. These things can't be forced." Without saying much more, Su Jie swept his gaze over the townspeople hiding behind windows and street corners spectating, and cast a glance towards the Chu family mansion. He then pulled on the reins. "Let's go. Let's head back." The 7 or 8 disciples immediately followed Su Jie and dashed out of Shaoshan Town. Shaoshan Town's Chu family. As the town's largest landlord, in control of a miniature spirit field, the Chu family's income was enough to crush the entire town. With wealth, naturally, the family's manor was not lacking. Among the painted rafters and decorated ridgepoles of the veranda, a dark iron-colored qilin was displayed, grand and stately. Stone steps paved a path leading to every corner of the courtyard, and the windowsills were filled with various green plants and flowers, their fragrance overwhelming. In the main hall of the main house, translucent lioli tiles sparkled, and the walls were adorned with various calligraphies and exquisite porcelain. In front of the door was a large plaque, with the words Chu Mansion written in gold paint, as if to declare the family's name to the world. At this time, in the main hall of the Chu family, a middle-aged man wearing a crown and silk robes was slightly bowing his waist. He was Chu Xuantan, the current patriarch of the Chu family. "Mr. Pei, I have already notified all the Chu family members to come and join the banquet," he said. If the townsfolk saw this, they probably wouldn't believe their eyes. The domineering head of the Chu family in Shaoshan Town, speaking so respectfully and obsequiously. In front of Chu Xuantan, a tall figure slowly turned around, revealing an expressionless face. It was Pei Haibing, an inner disciple of Ghost Ridge Palace. "Have you taken care of the things I asked you to do?" Pei Haibing's gaze did not fall on Chu Xuantan but rather indifferently observed the Chu family's mansion, as though the air of haughty coldness had seeped into his bones. Chu Xuantan's body shuddered slightly, and he quickly said, "Mr. Pei, we dare not neglect the tasks you have assigned. Upon receiving your notification, we sent a pigeon to deliver the message to Sanlang. He is an outer disciple at the Purple Mist sect. Upon receiving the letter, he will surely return immediately." When talking about Sanlang, pride surfaced on Chu Xuantan's face. This was his most promising child, who, due to exceptional talent, had been accepted into the Purple Mist sect at the age of 15, beginning as a servant and now already an outer disciple. The Purple Mist sect was a mid-sized sect within the Jiashao prefecture, with thousands of disciples, and the sect master was a mighty figure of the secret realm. Having such a connection with the sect was a matter of pride for the entire Chu family. "Good, you've done well," said Pei Haibing, his hands clasped behind his back as he walked slowly toward the banquet. A look of joy appeared on Chu Xuantan's face. He had made an acquaintance with Mr. Pei half a year ago by chance. This man with a mysterious background was said to hail from a real family of great wealth and influence, possessing a demeanor that kept others at a significant distance, a quality hard to imitate. What amazed people even more was his strength. Having demonstrated a minor show of power, he had made several sacrificial elders of the family tremble with fear. At that moment, Chu Xuantan knew that by forming a good relationship with Mr. Pei, the family would greatly benefit in the future. Perhaps they could rise to great heights, become true elites, and move into a great city. Not to remain in a rural town, mingling with barefooted paupers, looked down upon in secret by city families as country bumpkins. Jogging to keep up with Pei Haibing, and after a moment's hesitation, Chu Xuantan continued, "However, Mr. Pei, those people you mentioned, are they really demon cultivators?" In this meeting, Pei Haibing had brought a piece of news that he had encountered demon cultivator disciples and instructed Chu Xuantan to inform the Purple Mist sect to prevent calamity from befalling Shaoshan town. "Do you not believe what I say?" Pei Haibing turned back indifferently, startling Chu Xuantan with a shiver, feeling that the gaze was far too terrifying, cold as if it could freeze a person solid. No, of course, I do not doubt what you say, Mr. Pei. It's just, if they really are demon cultivators, aren't they too mild? The people we sent to test them were only injured. Not a single one was killed, Chu Xuantan said cautiously, which differed vastly from his impression of demon cultivators. His impression of demon cultivators was of bloodthirsty cruelty, prone to massacres with rather excessive methods. "Have you ever seen a real demon cultivator?" Pei Haibing spoke while continuing to the banquet venue. To host this mysterious Mr. Pei, the entire Chu family had been mobilized, with every member, young and old, participating in the banquet, amounting to over 200 people. "Well, no." Chu Xuantan hesitated, then shook his head. "Heh, take a look at me. Do I seem like the demon cultivator you have in your memory?" Gazing at the over 100 people gathered for the banquet, men, women, elderly, and children of all sorts, Pei Haibing let out a soft chuckle, his laughter filled with mockery and teasing. "Mr. Pei, you shouldn't joke like this." Chu Xuantan felt a surge of unease upon seeing Pei Haibing's sinister smile, premonitions of something very wrong emerging. "A joke? Today I will show you just what sort of methods a demon cultivator employs." Licking his lips, Pei Haibing reached out with a large hand, and the top of the skull of Chu Xuantan's wife, who had come up to offer her respects, was suddenly lifted off. Following that, her beautiful head was pulled out from the root, blood spurting over a meter high, showering both Pei Haibing and Chu Xuantan nearby. Silence. The Chu family members at the entire banquet were stunned, unable to believe what they were seeing. Why had this mysterious Mr. Pei suddenly turned to murder? You really are." Chu Xuantan's lips trembled, pointing at Pei Haibing, his face turning deathly pale. Piecing together what Pei Haibing just said, how could he not understand that the Mr. Pei he had invited into his home was an authentic demon cultivator? "Now do you understand? Do our demon cultivator methods meet your standards?" Pei Haibing sneered sarcastically. Amidst the laughing, his clothes burst apart, and countless bone spikes protruded from his skin like a hedgehog suddenly bristling its quills. The bones branched out like tree limbs, piercing through the Chu family members one by one, stringing them together and hanging them in midair like skewered insects. Blood, screams, struggles. A scene ripe with gore unfolded in what should have been a celebratory banquet, as the entire Chu mansion was enveloped by terror and death. Demon. The Chu family members ran about in panic, but how could they possibly escape the slaughter by Pei Haibing, an inner disciple? In less than half a minute, everyone in the Chu mansion, whether family members or servants, was pierced by the white bones. From a distance, it looked like a coral giant tree made of bone grew into the sky above the mansion. Every coral branch impaled with struggling human bodies, the blood pooling towards Pei Haibing's feet, forming a puddle of blood. My third son will take revenge for the Chu family." Chu Xuantan was not yet dead. His eyes full of blood and regret, the sight of his family being slaughtered filled him with indescribable rage and remorse. "Revenge? Rest assured, once I'm done using him, your third son will come to join you soon. We demon cultivators, when we say we will annihilate an entire family, we mean it. No one will be spared." Pei Haibing's gaze was dark and deep as a still pond. As he spoke, his hands formed a spell, and he uttered a low shout. "White bone transformation. White bone Dao. No, all wrong. Ha ha. It's the white bone immortal path." In his maniacal laughter, the live bodies on the white bone coral branches violently shook, uttering screams of extreme agony. As their bones pierced through the skin, turning into bone fluid absorbed by the white bone coral, and the bodies, without bone support, slumped like mud, thumping down from mid-air, gathering into a small mound of corpses. Pleasurable, truly. The demon path requires murder for one to achieve Tao. Pei Haibing's face was sickly flush, as the white bone coral withdrew back into his body. His cultivation soaring rapidly, fueled by the marrow of the bones he had absorbed from others. Now, it's time for the Purple Mist sect to perform. Be good pawns for me. After completely slaughtering every living soul in the Chu mansion, regardless of age, Pei Haibing licked his lips and strolled towards the outside of the mansion. With each step he took, the bones in his face shifted, and the bones throughout his body changed as well, his height and features transforming, taking on the appearance of Su Jie. Stepping out of the Chu mansion, Pei Haibing observed the alarmed townspeople around him and sneered, "I am the demon cultivator Su Jie. Everyone in the Chu mansion, over 200 people, have been slaughtered by me. This is the fate of those who offend a demon cultivator." The townspeople shuddered and their pupils dilated at the mention of this and the sight of the carnage behind Pei Haibing. A scream erupted from someone in the crowd. In an instant, everyone turned and fled, wishing they had more than 2 legs with which to escape. However, Pei Haibing, who had planned everything, failed to notice a small dragonfly hiding on one of the fleeing townspeople. Due to the crowds and the chaos, and because he was caught in his proud and arrogant mood, he let down his guard and missed this detail. The cold wind whistled sharply as several figures darted rapidly through the mountain forest, startling a flock of birds into flight. It was a team of 3 men and 1 woman. "Senior Brother Zhang, we're almost at my home. Let's go find my father and ask about the situation first," said a tall man who spoke up. He was dressed in a robe adorned with patterns of purple mist and floating clouds, a garment that would be recognized by any Jianghu person as the attire of a Purple Mist sect disciple. His name was Chu Pu, the 3rd son of Chu Xuantan. He had joined the Purple Mist sect at the age of 15 and had now been promoted to an outer disciple with cultivation at the 3rd level of Yunling realm. The other 3 who traveled with him were entirely different. These 3 were clad in iron clothes, wearing pointed iron hats, with double swords at their waists. They moved like dragons soaring and tigers leaping, their eyes filled with the resolute and bloodthirsty intent of seasoned warriors. They were disciples of the Punishment Hall of the Purple Mist sect, each with cultivation at or above the 5th level of Yunling realm, and they were not in the same league as him. In addition to capturing and punishing those who violated the sect's laws, the Punishment Hall also dealt with matters related to the demon path. The trio formed a standard reconnaissance team when investigating the demon path, deployed by the Purple Mist sect when the enemy's situation was uncertain. Senior Brother Zhang, who Chu Pu referred to, and also the team leader Zhang Chongxin, turned his head to look toward a small town and said indifferently, "Be quick. If we can't find the demon cultivator, I'll hold you accountable. I really wouldn't bother with such a backwater place if it weren't for your steadfast assurances. Talk less, Chu Pu. I hope your intelligence is accurate. If there truly is a demon cultivator, you won't be left out of the rewards from the sect." The other 2 disciples from the Punishment Hall, Chu Lingxian and Ho Yongqing, also spoke. A couple they were. "Are we really going to give it to him? He's just a—" Chu Lingxian expressed her dissatisfaction in a whisper to Ho Yongqing. To suppress the reemergence of demon cultivators, the major righteous sects often set corresponding bounty rewards for exterminating demons, based on the strength and number of the demon cultivators killed, including elixirs, magic artifacts, talismans, cultivation techniques, spirit stones, and more. "Just soothe him for now. Whether we give it to him or not is still up to us," Ho Yongqing whispered back, exchanging a glance with Zhang Chongxin and instantly understanding each other's thoughts. Chu Pu chimed in with an awkward laugh. "Senior brothers and senior sister." Without further delay, Chu Pu hurriedly led the 3 seniors towards their family estate in Shaoshan town. Several minutes later, Chu Pu knelt on the ground, weeping bitterly as he watched the Chu family estate burn fiercely. The numerous corpses had been set ablaze by an enemy intent on destroying the evidence after a massacre. The once mighty Chu family estate, which reigned supreme in Shaoshan town for many years, was now erased by the raging fire. It really was the work of demon cultivators. Zhang Changxin, who was initially somewhat skeptical, now utterly believed that demon cultivators had come to Shaoshan town. The methods of these demon cultivators are truly despicable, said Chu Lingxian, visibly moved, not out of sorrow for the deceased members of the Chu family, but out of the realization that the cultivators' trail would be difficult to trace due to their scorched earth tactics. For cultivators, whether from the righteous sects or demon path, they are considered far above ordinary people, and it's rare for the two to be conflated. Hou Yongqing examined the scene, casually pocketing spirit stones and gold and silver among the ruins of the Chu family estate. Senior brothers and sister, I beg you, help me. I'll do anything, pleaded Chu Pu. Chu Pu clenched his teeth hard, knowing he was weak and alone, and the only way to seek revenge was to rely on the 3 disciples from the punishment hall. Zhang Changxin didn't respond, as the dead were just ordinary folks, which meant little to him. He was more concerned about the strength of these demon cultivators and thought about finding more hands to ensure safety. Young Master Chu Pu, you've returned. You must avenge our family head. You must avenge the entire Chu family. You must kill that demon cultivator. At that moment, a cry came from outside the Chu family estate. Shortly after, Chu Pu saw the sacrificial elder hired by his family, who he hadn't seen for a long time, stumble back from the outside, crying loudly as soon as he saw him. You are called Lu something? Chu Pu hadn't returned home for several years since he was at the Purple Mist sect, making him somewhat unfamiliar with the clan's personnel. He couldn't recall the name for a moment. I am Lu Feng. Entrusted by your father, I came to preside over Shaoshan town. Just today, I personally had dealings with that devil named Sujia. He had too many treasures on him, including a superior flying sword, as well as a large number of talismans and magic artifacts. We inadvertently discovered his secret, and as a result, he exterminated my entire Chu family. Lu Feng sobbed continuously, yet before Chu Pu could react, Zhang Changxin and his 2 companions' eyes lit up at the news. You're saying that demon cultivator has a lot of resources? Zhang Changxin stepped up to Lu Feng and picked him up with one hand. It was I who witnessed it with my own eyes, and there is definitely no mistake. He also has a powerful flying sword, and his own strength isn't strong. He relies on all kinds of treasures. Otherwise, our entire Chu family would not have been defeated by him. Lu Feng's body trembled, showing a hint of fear. How strong is he? Hou Yongqing pointed at Lu Feng and asked Chu Pu. He should be at the 2nd level of Yunling realm. Chu Pu answered honestly, although not very certain. But this answer was sufficient to put Zhang Changxin and his companions at ease. Even someone weak at the 2nd level of Yunling realm like Lu Feng was spared, indicating that demon cultivator really wasn't very strong and was likely just flexing his muscles with the aid of treasures, not a real threat. Do you know where that demon cultivator went? If you want revenge, you'll have to lead the way for us. Chu Lingxian couldn't wait to speak up. Without the threat of an opponent, a demon cultivator carrying a large quantity of resources was definitely someone they needed to capture. I know. I'm very familiar with the terrain around here, and since they rode horses, they must have left traces which I can find. Lu Feng nodded repeatedly, speaking with absolute certainty. Good. Such a vicious demon cultivator. We can't let them get away no matter what. Zhang Changxin exchanged glances with Chu Lingxian and Hou Yongqing, and the 2 of them understood, immediately speaking in unison. In that case, we mustn't delay. Let's set out immediately and arrest that brutal demon cultivator. At this moment, the 3 had no mention of their earlier hesitation, nor did they continue to suggest adding more people to their group. More people meant more divisions of the spoils later, which was absolutely unacceptable. Thank you, senior brothers. Chu Pu wasn't dim-witted either, though he had some doubts in his heart as to why everyone in his family was dead, except for Lu Feng who survived. But considering the revenge for the extermination of his family was now at hand, he felt only excitement. The group quickly left Shaoshan town, and under the guidance of Lu Feng, They pursued the trail at high speed. Zhang Chongxin and others found that while Lu Feng's cultivation was not impressive, his tracking skills were exceptional. He could find clues even from traces that had been deliberately erased, following them closely. In the afternoon, as the sky gradually darkened, accompanied by flashes of lightning and peals of thunder, a torrential downpour suddenly arrived, the fierce wind whipping huge raindrops that drenched the forests and mountains. Thump, thump, thump. 7 or 8 large horses with high heads sped through the downpour, their hooves striking the ground and splashing huge amounts of muddy water, turning the ground into a quagmire. Whoa! Atop a mountain peak, Su Jie suddenly pulled on the reins to stop his horse. Brother Su, what's wrong? Gu Weonian and a few other disciples looked perplexed. They were still a long way from returning to their original group. What if I said that my stomach feels a bit off? Possibly from something I ate back in Shaoshan town? Would you believe me? Su Jie deliberately rubbed his stomach, and upon hearing this, everyone was speechless. Due to their cultivation of the 100 poison refining Gu scripture, disciples of the Ghost Ridge Palace were mostly immune to many poisons. It was quite rare for someone to get an upset stomach, let alone be affected by poison in their food. Haha, just kidding with you. I left something in Shaoshan town and need to go back and retrieve it. You don't need to follow me, Su Jie said with a laugh, and this reason seemed convincing enough. Then you'd better hurry up and catch up with us. The group didn't think too much about it and quickly moved on. After all, Shaoshan town wasn't the kind of place where one would encounter danger. Su Jie turned his horse around, heading back the way they had come. To drive out one wolf only to be devoured by a tiger. Who exactly is the wolf and who is the tiger is yet to be determined. Su Jie, looking up at the light rain falling from the sky, tied his horned scale horse to a tree and casually broke off several branches. Swoosh, swoosh. With a flick of his fingers, the branches shot through the curtain of rain, pinning several small bees to the tree trunk. Then Su Jie chuckled and walked alone through the muddy mountain terrain. Elsewhere, tracking the caravan's tracks, Zhang Chongxin and his group of 5 moved through the forest as swiftly as monkeys, the raindrops shattering into pieces as they struck their iron clothes. Displeased with Lu Feng's slow pace, Chu Lingxian simply picked him up and sped along with him in tow. I can feel it, we're about to catch up with that demon cultivator. At a spot where the muddy hoofprints remained slightly intact, Lu Feng spoke out. Prepare for battle. Zhang Chongxin issued a command, and the other 3 nodded, their palms resting on the hilts of their swords and blades. We'll proceed from here. They can't be more than 5 miles away from us as long as we. Lu Feng pointed in a direction, but in the midst of his sentence, his voice suddenly halted, and he instinctively rubbed his eyes. As long as what? As Zhang Chongxin turned his head to speak, unaware that 2 low-grade junior fire-gathering talismans had been buried by someone and were now suddenly detonated. Huge flames shot up into the sky. Caught off guard, among the 5, including Lu Feng, only Hou Yongqing and Chu Pu were far enough away to avoid the blast. Zhang Chongxin, Chu Lingxian, and Lu Feng were all simultaneously scorched by the flames. Fortunately, with their considerable cultivation, Zhang Chongxin and Chu Lingxian turned their iron hats, which deflected most of the fierce flames. The few that weren't deflected were blocked by their iron clothes. But it was different for Lu Feng. Hey, how are you doing? Zhang Chongxin immediately looked toward Lu Feng, worried that their guide had been burned to death. However, what happened next made his eyes widen in shock. In the midst of the fire, Lu Feng's body underwent a drastic transformation, his bones cracking loudly as his skin melted like wax, revealing a man with an indifferent gaze. It was Pei Haibing, an inner disciple of Ghost Ridge Palace. Pei Haibing's cold eyes flickered, and his right hand shot out like lightning, snaking toward Chu Lingxian, who was closest to him. Who are you? Chu Lingxuan's heart pounded furiously, sensing a fatal threat. She quickly retreated, while her double swords hissed out of their sheaths and flew from her waist, turning into 2 silver crescents that crossed and spun, slashing toward Pei Haibing. Trifling tricks. Pei Haibing's outstretched fingers sprouted bones that pierced through the skin, growing wildly and expanding into a huge bony hand that spanned 2 zhang in diameter, firmly capturing the high-speed spinning crescent swords. Accompanied by a grating cutting sound and a flurry of bone fragments, he ultimately managed to grab them by brute force, crushing them into deformed scrap metal. White Bone Transformation Skill. You are an inner disciple of Ghost Ridge Palace. Seeing this, Zhang Changxin's voice suddenly changed. As a disciple of the Punishment Hall with an in-depth understanding of demon cultivators, he was naturally familiar with the infamous Ghost Ridge Palace within Jiaxiao Prefecture. Famous cultivation techniques from Ghost Ridge Palace were also well documented, and Pei Haibing's use of the White Bone Transformation skill matched with the records. Humph, not bad eyesight, but it's a pity. Seems there was a slip in the plan. That kid noticed it, didn't he? Pei Haibing licked his lips. His reconnaissance insects had suddenly died all at once just before, and immediately afterward, he was attacked. The weak fire of the White Bone Transformation skill, the detonation of the fire-gathering talisman, perfectly exposed his disguise. Otherwise, according to Pei Haibing's plan, he should have been the one leading Zhang Changxin and the others to catch up with Su Jie, letting Su Jie be killed by the disciples of the Purple Mist sect. Then he would emerge to clean up all traces and let 1 or 2 survivors escape to bring the news back, pinning the incident for certain. In this way, he could hide his involvement and attribute Su Jie's death to the Purple Mist sect, for Su Jie's reckless actions had exposed his whereabouts, leading to a deadly disaster. That way, Taoist Qiu would also have an explanation, and the incident wouldn't trace back to him. What's going on? What exactly is happening? Chu Pu's eyes were filled with fear. The sudden turn of events had completely taken him by surprise. Idiot, don't you get it yet? It's likely this man staged the whole thing himself, and if things are as I suspect, your Chu family people were killed by him. Ho Yongqing slapped Chu Pu, causing him to stagger. His gaze was severe as he stared at Pei Haibing, sensing a profound threat from this man. The Ghost Ridge Palace, a demon sect, was much stronger in both ranking and power compared to their Purple Mist sect. Every inner disciple from Ghost Ridge Palace was extremely difficult to deal with. One wrong move could mean total annihilation. Was it you who massacred my Chu family? Chu Pu's pupils dilated as the realization finally hit him that this man was the mastermind behind everything. Don't rush. Soon I'll send you to reunite with your family. Pei Haibing glanced coldly at Chu Pu, paying little attention to this minor character, and instead looked toward the mountains shrouded by the rain, calling out loudly, Su Jie, I underestimated you. Hey, I know you're secretly watching. You think you can use these wastes to wear me down. You thought wrong. If I want to kill you, nobody can stop me. As he spoke, Pei Haibing also made his move. His skin writhed unnaturally, and white bones burrowed out, growing and spreading rapidly into forks. And in the blink of an eye, a white bone coral giant tree tens of meters tall silently rose up. Chu Pu didn't have time to feel anger before he was frightened pale by this eerie and terrifying scene, instinctively looking for Zhang Changxin's protection. Too bad Zhang Changxin and the other 2 disciples from the Punishment Hall were just as terrified. Pei Haibing's power was far beyond their expectations. Attack together! Zhang Changxin shouted fiercely, taking up a triangular position with Chu Lingxian and Ho Yongqing, coordinating with each other to charge toward Pei Haibing's true form. Seeing the 3 of them charge forward, Pei Haibing's mouth twisted into a cold smile as his left hand formed a spell. Whoosh whoosh, the white bone coral giant tree swayed, and hundreds of white bone tree branches fell down, densely stabbing towards Zhang Changxin and his 2 comrades from midair like a volley of countless arrows. In that moment, all one could hear was the whistling of the branches cutting through the air. Thunder! Descend! Vanquish the demon! Zhang Changxin roared, his iron clothes shattering raindrops as big as beans, while thunder and lightning flashed in the sky. A curved bolt of lightning fiercely struck the twin blades, covering them with a layer of erratic purple arcs. This was none other than the most famous cultivation technique of the Purple Mist sect, the Wanxiang Heavenly Power True Method, which borrowed the power of heavenly might for one's own use. // The thunder twin blades slashed continuously, shredding each white bone tree branch into pieces. But for the white bone coral giant tree, these attempts were merely a drop in the bucket due to the overwhelming density of the attack. Chu Lingxian let out a stifled groan. With her twin blades destroyed, her defense was not tight enough, and her shoulder and calf were pierced by 2 white bone tree branches. The iron clothes worn by the disciples of the Punishment Hall were a defensive magic artifact, which blocked much of the damage for her, but ultimately, they could not prevent the white bone from penetrating flesh and blood. In just an instant, Chu Lingxuan's facial muscles trembled, and her bones made a series of crisp noises, especially in the shoulder and calf where the trembling was severe. Arg! Chu Lingxian cried out in anguish, her eyes wide with shock and anger as she looked at her shoulder and calf. My leg! Before she could finish speaking, all 206 bones in her body, as if having their own will, moved to align with the white bone tree branches. The 2 white bone tree branches, like grafted living saplings, rapidly grew on the surface of Chu Lingxuan's body, transforming into 2 white bone dwarf trees, roughly 2 meters tall. The cold wind carried the freezing rain down, falling on Chu Lingxuan's face, frozen with horror. Seconds ago, she was full of life, but now her body was already cold, devoid of bones and support, spread out like putty, in an extremely tragic death. This process was all too rapid. Zhang Chongxin and Hou Yongqing, who were focused on their breakthrough, were too late when they noticed the situation and could only watch helplessly as Chu Lingxian met such a fate. Die, die, die! I want you dead. Hou Yongqing's eyes were bloodshot with rage. The tragic death of his lover had driven him to insanity, and he rushed towards Pei Haibing recklessly. Yongqing, be careful! Zhang Chongxin shouted, but as the white bone tree branches began to densely stab down again, he had no choice but to forcibly channel spiritual power and send out a wave of air over a dozen meters long. The powerful force of the thunder evaporated the rainwater and shattered the large swath of white bone tree branches, clearing a path for Hou Yongqing, a path leading straight to Pei Haibing's true body. Arg! Hou Yongqing was the first to charge forward, his twin blades shining with silver light as he too used the Wanxiang Heavenly Power True Method. His blades whipped up a tornado, seemingly capable of shredding everything. In the midst of the tempest, man and demon began a close-quarters encounter. The whimpering of the weak. Do you think I, a Gu master, would fear close combat? Pei Haibing's back sprouted bones that connected into a coral giant tree tens of meters high. He seemed to be fixed in one spot, but it was only when Hou Yongqing actually got close to Pei Haibing that he realized, to his dismay, that his twin blades could only tear the flesh and could not sever his opponent's bones. Boom! Unconvinced, Hou Yongqing swung his twin blades frantically, seizing the moment while Zhang Chongxin blocked the white bone tree branches, aiming to completely slay Pei Haibing. In just a few seconds, Pei Haibing's body was covered in wounds, his skin hanging like torn rags on his skeletal frame, turning into a mound of flesh exposing the underlying bones, which shimmered with a faint golden glow. Are you trying to tickle me? Pei Haibing mocked with a sneer. Having cultivated the white bone transformation skill, he had long since abandoned his useless flesh and skin. His bones were his true form and the foundation of his life. Why, how can it not be cut? Hou Yongqing screamed hysterically, unable to believe he was actually unable to break through Pei Haibing's defenses. With the strength of his twin blades, he could even cut through an iron pillar as thick as a human waist, yet he was unable to sever a human bone. White bone transformation skill, you think you can break through with only the 5th level of Yunling realm cultivation, what a joke. No sooner had the words fallen than Pei Haibing struck to kill. White bone tree branches fell from above, piercing through Hou Yongqing's top of the skull, skewering him high into the air. He soon became a soft-bodied creature without the support of a skeleton, like a piece of flesh and skin clothes, swaying in the wind on the branch, following in the footsteps of Chu Lingxian. Yongqing. Zhang Chongxin knew the odds were against him, and without time for much sentiment, he ran away without looking back after once again cutting through the white bone tree branch. Did I say you could leave? Pei Haibing's fingers curled and branches of white bone fell rapidly, sealing off all of Zhang Chongxin's escape routes and initiating a frenzied siege. At this moment, Zhang Chongxin's iron clothes were riddled with scars, and with his 6th level of Yunling realm cultivation, he lasted much longer than Chu Lingxian and Hou Yongqing, who only had the 5th level cultivation. However, such resistance was futile. The white bone tree branches falling from the sky were endless, and no matter what he did, he could not break out. After 1 minute, Zhang Chongxin's twin blades shattered, and his whole person was listless, forced to use palm thunder with his hands. With every clap of his palms, the palm thunder was as powerful as a rocket launcher's blast, much stronger than Lu Feng's, but still, it was unable to change his fate. Half a minute later, Zhang Chongxin's whole body was pierced by the white bone tree branches, and he was hung in the air, becoming another trophy of Pei Haibing's exploits. Cough, cough, run, hurry and run. Go back to Purple Mist to inform the master. Zhang Chongxin had not yet taken his last breath, bloodied all over. He struggled to look toward Chu Pu, who had already become petrified with fear, hoping he could seek revenge for himself and others. Chu Pu only had the 3rd level of Yunling realm cultivation. He couldn't intervene at all in a battle of this level. Previously, during the indiscriminate attack of the white bone tree branches, although he had luckily escaped a disaster, he lost all courage to resist. Seeing the strongest among them, Zhang Chongxin, die miserably before him, Chu Pu's heart turned cold. He ignored the enmity of the entire Chu family's extermination and, like a terrified stray dog, fearfully began to run on his wobbly legs toward the direction away from Pei Haibing. The downpour grew heavier, connecting the river in the sky with the earth like a pouring curtain, blurring the vision and turning the ground into a muddy swamp. Thump! In his panic, Chu Pu did not see what was in front of him. It was as if he had hit a wall, and he was thrown back, falling into the muddy ground, splattering mud all over himself. But at that moment he could not care less. His body trembled unconsciously due to extreme fear, his eyes filled with despair. In the pouring rain, a massive dark shadow slowly emerged into his field of vision. Pale and eerie, hundreds of corpse hands meandered through, leaving palm prints in the muddy ground. On the body, stretching over 10 meters long, bloodthirsty and ruthless cold insect eyes slowly rotated, an image that could stop one's breath and freeze their blood. A figure stood on the head of the supergiant centipede, with the rain sliding down his long neck, but it could not hide those pitch-black eyes shining with a blood-chilling murderous intent. I'm doomed. Chu Pu gave up struggling and lay in the mud for a long time, unwilling to get up. Pei Haibing was still unresolved behind him, and now there seemed to be an even more ferocious one in front of him. Dwek, dwek, dwek. In the midst of the downpour, a round of applause came through the rain. Brilliant, just brilliant. Worthy of Brother Pei, your strength is truly formidable. You dealt with those Purple Mist sect disciples so easily. Standing atop the head of the 1,000-hand centipede, Su Jie narrowed his eyes and clapped his hands. I thought you wouldn't dare to show yourself. Do you think you have a chance to defeat me because my spiritual power is greatly depleted? Haha, you overestimate those pieces of trash. The reason I engaged the Purple Mist sect to act on my behalf is because I'm confident I can handle them. Pei Haibing turned around and showed some surprise in his eyes upon seeing Su Jie appear. He had thought that, after witnessing the battle just now, Su Jie would most likely be scared off. However, as soon as he recognized the 1,000-hand centipede beneath Su Jie, his gaze turned solemn, and he understood the source of Su Jie's confidence. With his insight, although he did not pursue the path of a Gu master in the Ghost Ridge Palace sect, who hasn't seen a pig run even if they haven't eaten pork. The exaggerated size of the 1,000-hand centipede made it immediately apparent that it was a powerful 3-refinement poisonous insect of low grade. Su Jie smiled and said, "Who knows unless we try? No one can be on guard against a thief every day. Rather than living in constant fear, it's better to kill you here and pin the blame on the Purple Mist sect. Wouldn't that be perfect?" As he spoke, Su Jie also took the white bone sky-slaying sword out of his storage bag. "You want this flying sword, don't you? Come on, let's see if it likes you. With a smile on his lips, the flying sword in Su Jie's hand suddenly vanished, piercing through the clouds and breaking through the air. In the next moment, it approached right in front of Pei Haibing. Pei Haibing's hands clapped together fiercely, trying to grab the flying sword, but the sharpness of the white-boned sky-slaying sword exceeded that of his bones. In the instant of contact, the flying sword ascended once again, while two of Pei Haibing's left fingers dropped to the ground, severed by the sword. The very bones that Hou Yongqing couldn't break no matter what were no match for the sharp edge of the white-boned sky-slaying sword. What a treasure, indeed a fine one. Having lost two fingers, Pei Haibing did not care. His eyes greedily followed the white-boned sky-slaying sword as it attacked again, while numerous white-boned tree branches surged wildly in midair, like a horde of serpent-like poisonous snakes, chasing and entwining themselves around the sword as it grew. Under Su Jie's control, the white-boned sky-slaying sword moved like a nimble bird, threading through every gap and opening. Simultaneously, Su Jie patted the head of the thousand-hand centipede he was sitting on. The thousand-hand centipede raised its head, and its facial plates cracked open, revealing purple luminescence flowing within the crevices. Boom, boom, boom. A second later, dozens of purple light rays scorched the air, blasting a large area of white-boned tree branches, turning many to flying ash. Immediately after, several pale corpse hands crawled out from under the thousand-hand centipede's belly and rushed towards Pei Haibing at high speed. Sky Piece. Pei Haibing was somewhat fearful of the high temperature of the purple light ray, but he still retained his confidence in victory and coldly spat out two words. The rain in the sky began to pause. A strong sense of crisis swept over him, and Su Jie suddenly looked up. In the sky, the rain stopped, and large snowflakes began to fall in a dense flurry. Upon closer inspection, these weren't snowflakes at all but clearly bone powder. As the bone powder landed, dyeing the earth white, Su Jie wasted no time in having the thousand-hand centipede wrap around him for protection. Hiss hiss. The thousand-hand centipede let out two cries. Bone powder was ineffective against stones and trees, but its contact with living flesh was entirely different. The bone powder actually melted its chitinous insect shell, which even high-velocity machine gun fire struggled to damage. The insect shell on the surface of the thousand-hand centipede kept cracking and breaking into smaller centipedes, which then died off. It healed its wounds through super self-healing. Fortunately, Su Jie acted quickly, or else if he had come into contact with this bone powder, his end would have been miserable indeed. This was evident in Chu Pu's case, who had been touched by the falling bone powder, his bones dissolving into nothingness and, in the end, could not escape his demise. Earth bones. Pei Haibing clapped his hands together and, suddenly, it was as if dragons and serpents churned beneath the ground. The soil heaved and white bones mixed with dirt and rocks, growing into white-boned trees that branched out endlessly, shielding the curtain of the sky. Looking down from above, a dense white-boned forest blossomed upon the land with layers upon layers of crisscrossing white bones, transforming the area into a white-bone domain. No sooner had he charged into the white-bone forest than both the white-bone sky-slaying sword and the pale corpse hands faced continuous and relentless assault by the white bones, with branches above and roots below, nearly completely blocking all lines of attack. How would the 3 refinement poisonous insect fare in the white-bone forest I created? Not a single insect shall fly in, Pei Haibing declared, his voice emanating from the bone forest. This was his true strength cultivation at the Yunling Realm 7th level. In combat with Zhang Chongxin and the others, he merely controlled a single giant white-bone tree. Now, however, it was a white-bone forest with dozens of trees, which showed just how wary he was of Su Jie. If one insect isn't enough, what about a swarm of them? Su Jie slapped his insect control bag at his waist as a black smoke swiftly rose from the bag. Tens of thousands of human-faced moths flapped their wings, resembling a thick black cloud rushing toward the white-bone forest. Body worm focusing method? You're not an inner disciple. Where did you learn that? For the first time, Pei Haibing's voice was a bit troubled, obviously caught off guard by Su Jie's trump card. Directed by Su Jie, their insect king, the human-faced moth swarm braved the bone powder falling from the sky, using the moths on the outer layer to shield those within. The entire swarm plunged straight into the white bone forest. Human-faced moths are insignificant poisonous insects with little more than a good bite and corrosive acid. But that's just a single moth. When it comes to a flock of them, a human-faced moth swarm turns into a truly devastating weapon. Boom! The white bone forest began to collapse in succession. Wherever the human-faced moth swarm passed, it was like a surging torrent, corroding and devouring all vegetation and rocks in its path, leaving behind barren white lands. The white bone forest met the same fate. In ordinary bodyworm focusing methods, that might not be very powerful. Yet among Su Jie's well-cultivated swarm of human-faced moths, there were dozens shining with a golden light, having broken through to the low-grade level. A single acidic vomit from them could dissolve a large swath of white bones, leading the swarm through the forest, crashing and smashing. Any white bone tree branch that attempted an attack was instantly eaten clean by the moths. Found you! Suddenly, the corner of Su Jie's mouth lifted into a smirk. Amidst the smashing and crashing of the swarm, vast sections of the white bone forest were destroyed, and Pei Haibing, hiding within, was now exposed in Su Jie's sight. Human bones. Pei Haibing's face turned ugly as he watched the approaches of the supersonic white bone sky slaughter sword, the creepingly sinister pale corpse hands, and the engulfing swarm darkening the sky. In a desperate struggle, he bit off his tongue, using the blood on its tip to draw a twisted character of a human on his forehead. Crack, crack. Strange sounds came from inside Pei Haibing's body. His flesh withered all over, leaving a humanoid skeleton lying on the ground. An ochre skeleton covered with brain matter and internal organs that grew at an unimaginably fast rate, with countless misshapen bones sprouting wildly. So many tricks up his sleeve. Seeing Pei Haibing ready to unleash a powerful move, Su Jie was not like the simpletons in dramas, who just watched their opponent complete their powerful technique. As a demon cultivator, Su Jie cared nothing for martial ethics. Before Pei Haibing could complete his transformation, dozens of pale corpse hands, capable of easily snapping steel, pressed down on him. The human-faced moth swarm immediately covered Pei Haibing's entire body, forming a ball of insects, furiously nibbling and corroding him. Meanwhile, under Su Jie's control, the white bone sky-slaying sword aimed straight at Pei Haibing's forehead and plunged in. After advancing to the 5th level of the Yunling realm, the increase in spiritual power allowed Su Jie to wield the white bone sky-slaying sword with even greater might. A single strike of the flying sword penetrated Pei Haibing's head, with bits of white brain matter spurting out. The flying sword turned agilely in midair and struck again, furiously piercing through Pei Haibing's body. At the scene, one could hear Pei Haibing's agonizing screams and his increasingly chaotic and frantic words. "It hurts so much. You should die. You all should die. I will kill the master. Kill all of you. Turn you all into sacrifices for my white bone immortal path. Haha, the immortal path. I'm about to become an immortal and ascend." Amid those mad shouts, Pei Haibing's body swelled further, transforming into a 10-meter-tall giant skeletal monster. Its overall form resembled a magnified version of an alien ghost, with a misshapen body and a pair of wings that twitched uncontrollably due to poor control. On his slim, sharp head, a pair of crimson eyes was filled with bloodlust and ferocity, emitting a deafening screech. However, because his starting move took too long, his enlarged, misshapen skeletal body, already pit-marked from the biting of the human-faced moth swarm, had exposed organs everywhere, with blood spraying like a fountain. Roar! As Pei Haibing roared, he charged toward Su Jie, and toward a small hill 200 meters to the left. Boom! Pei Haibing smashed into the rocks, with disgusting sticky saliva dripping from his mouth, madly attacking the rocks and trees. Each strike blasted a huge crater in the ground, easily shattering giant rocks and uprooting trees to be flung away. At this moment, Pei Haibing seemed to consider the small hill his mortal enemy, attacking it relentlessly, ignoring the fact that his body was riddled with holes from the human-faced moth swarm, just venting his madness on the hill. Has he gone mad? Su Jie muttered, unsure whether this was a flaw in Pei Haibing's white bone transformation skill or if his mind had been damaged by the white bone sky-slaying sword, causing his mental state to become deranged and even mistaking who his enemy was. But this was fine with Su Jie. The white bone sky-slaying sword hovering above his head soared again, continuously piercing through Pei Haibing's body. By now, Pei Haibing posed no threat, yet in this form his life force was incredibly resilient. Even though he was constantly slashed and pierced by the white bone sky-slaying sword and torn and corroded by the human-faced moth swarm, his life was not completely ended. After all, given his massive size now, without a fatal weakness, the wounds created by the white bone sky-slaying sword were indeed too small. Seeing this scene, Su Jie patted the head of the thousand-hand centipede. The thousand-hand centipede twisted its body and ran swiftly. With a giant leap forward, it pressed Pei Haibing to the ground. Low-grade 3 refinements of the thousand-handed centipede, in terms of constitution, was immensely powerful. Not to mention Pei Haibing's currently battered and perforated body. Even at his peak in perfect condition, he wouldn't stand a chance in a direct physical confrontation with the thousand-handed centipede. Big bug. Such a huge bug. I hate bugs. Pei Haibing, blurting out indistinct words, intertwined his massive body with the thousand-handed centipede as they both flailed their limbs, fighting relentlessly. The ground and rocks under the feet of the man and the bug constantly shattered. Large ancient trees fell in clusters. Broken bones and shattered insect shells littered the area, creating a scene akin to hell. Su Jie held his breath, focusing intently on the fight whose outcome was already destined. A pair of hands fighting against 100 hands. What more is there to say? In less than 10 seconds, the grotesque bone-like growths on Pei Haibing had been severed by the thousand-handed centipede at the waist into 2 parts. His upper body was tightly covered with pale corpse hands, as bones were forcibly pulled out one by the thousand-handed centipede. In this scene, Pei Haibing resembled a toy destructively torn apart by a mischievous child, completely ravaged by the thousand-handed centipede. His aura visibly wilted, and at the end of his life, Pei Haibing's consciousness seemed to have somewhat returned, as he began to plea. My white bone immortal path is not yet perfected. I am an inner disciple, Master his elderly. Don't worry. If Master his elderly wants to seek revenge, he will go after the Purple Mist sect. It was you, Brother Pei, who picked this fight, wasn't it? Su Jie chuckled lightly, while Pei Haibing glared at Su Jie with eyes full of resentment and unwillingness. But he no longer had the ability to speak. As his brain matter was destroyed, he died with a heart full of anger and resentment. Su Jie didn't go over immediately. Instead, he cautiously let the thousand-handed centipede completely disassemble Pei Haibing's skeleton. Only after confirming that he was truly dead and not feigning his own death, did Su Jie finally walk over. White bone transformation skill. Truly a dangerous magic skill. Looking at the scattered bones all around, Su Jie squatted down in front of Pei Haibing. Crack! A flash of lightning streaked across, illuminating the dim surroundings and allowing Su Jie to see that something seemed to be growing out of Pei Haibing's head. This is... Su Jie focused his gaze and saw a small white bone tree sprouting from Pei Haibing's forehead. The tree, about the size of a palm, had its trunk made entirely of bone, looking delicate yet exuding an inexplicable evil aura, making one feel slightly queasy at the sight. Su Jie put on gloves and carefully picked up the small white bone tree, already guessing what it was. Su Jie had perused many public scriptures at Ghost Ridge Palace, including records of similar scenes. Cultivation reaching a certain height, cultivators who have practiced for many years would have tempered their bodies to possess various miraculous abilities, akin to a magic artifact. Thus, after death, cultivators might have a very small probability of leaving behind some special relic. For example, Shariputra left by Buddhist monks after they pass away, immortal bones and golden cores left by true Taoists after they transform. The demon path, naturally, also has such entities like the white bone tree in front of him. In terms of cultivation, Pei Haibing was far behind the Buddhist monks and Taoist masters, But owing to the specialty of his cultivation technique, his bones were closely related to the white bone transformation skill. After years of training and a fortuitous coincidence, this kind of relic was produced. The touch of the white bone tree was icy cold, with a chill spreading from his palm. Su Jie was not afraid. He had killed Pei Haibing when he was alive. Why would he fear his relic left after death? Trying to feel around, Su Jie channeled some spiritual power into it, and the little white bone tree suddenly began to tremble. The bones rapidly proliferated and expanded, and once it reached the ground, it took root in the soil. The bones continued to branch out and spread, transforming into a white bone tree over 10 meters tall. Su Jie stood up in front of this towering white bone tree, sensing the abundant spiritual energy diffusing from the tree. Looking up along the trunk, Su Jie discovered, to his surprise, that the canopy of the white bone tree was incessantly absorbing the spiritual energy drifting in the air. The roots that had anchored into the ground were also slowly absorbing the spiritual energy pervasive in the veins of the earth. In the Tianyuan world overall, the distribution of spiritual power is such that the spiritual energy floating in the air is often the most tenuous. Beneath the earth veins lies the most abundant and rich spiritual energy, which flows like underground currents. Over the years, this has led to the formation of spirit stone mines and various rare mineral deposits. The spiritual energy that drifts to the surface can, in places where it is abundant, create all kinds of pocket worlds, and in areas with less, it can make a region suitable for the growth of spirit plants. For instance, the miniature spirit field that Su Jie saw in Shaoshan town, belonging to the Chu family, was actually formed by the spiritual energy escaping from the earth veins to the surface. Now, on this massive white bone tree, Su Jie could sense that it was not only absorbing the loose spiritual energy in the air, but it was even absorbing the spiritual energy from underground. Could it be that I have stumbled upon great fortune? Su Jie's heart thumped rapidly, and he sat cross-legged with his palms pressed against the large white bone tree. Upon contact, a surge of abundant spiritual energy flowed into Su Jie's limbs and bones, making him so comfortable he almost moaned with pleasure. The leaves of the white bone tree swayed in the wind, continuously absorbing the wandering spiritual energy. The roots reaching dozens of meters into the ground were also absorbing the stray spiritual energy in the soil, which cultivators found difficult to utilize. Tiny crystalline droplets began to emerge on the leaves of the white bone tree, like dewdrops in the early morning. Actually, these were the result of highly concentrated spiritual energy condensing into a misty and liquid form. The liquefied spiritual energy slid down the trunk of the tree. Halfway down it was captured by Su Jie, who then absorbed the pure spiritual power within it. Su Jie closed his eyes slightly and focused on absorbing this rare, pure spiritual power. Even the barrier that hindered his breakthrough to the 6th level of Yunling realm felt like it was beginning to loosen. Whooshing, torrential rain hit the white bone tree. The storm swept away leaves, and in the dim environment, Su Jie sat on the ground with the branches of the massive white bone tree swaying behind him, like the menacing claws of a demon. After absorbing the nutrients and spiritual energy from the rain, the white bone tree gradually grew rough bark resembling human skin. The top branches grew air roots that hung down like a woman's long hair, blown chaotically by the fierce wind, giving it a sinister and eerie appearance. If an ordinary person were to see such a strange tree, they would be considered brave if they weren't immediately frightened into fainting. Some 15 minutes later, Su Jie slowly opened his eyes and looked at the large white bone tree before him, involuntarily inhaling a breath of cold air. Because the contact just now had provided spiritual energy that was more than triple what Su Jie normally absorbed from the air. Such abundant spiritual energy was already comparable to some miniature pocket worlds. Even within Ghost Ridge Palace, if there were similar environments with the effects of a pocket world, they wouldn't be something Su Jie could dare to covet. Yet this white bone tree could actually help Su Jie artificially create a cultivation environment akin to a pocket world. Following that, Su Jie continued to experiment and discovered even more uses for the white bone tree. Besides absorbing spiritual energy, this white bone tree was also a living plant. It could switch between a dormant and a growing state through the manipulation of spiritual power, One state resembled a small tree in dormancy, like a seed. Another was the current growing state, which meant that the tree could continue to grow in the future, and the efficiency at which it absorbed spiritual energy would improve. Such a treasure, if people knew about it, even the hidden realm elders would be unable to resist snatching it away. Su Jie murmured to himself, looking at the white-boned tree with a smile that he couldn't hide at the corner of his mouth. Today truly seemed to be his lucky day to have stumbled upon such an exotic relic. Could be said that with this miniature pocket world he could carry around, Su Jie's cultivation speed would greatly increase from now on. He carefully returned the white-boned tree to its original state and stored it away. Then Su Jie proceeded to open Pei Haibing's storage bag. This was a sizable storage bag of 5 cubic meters. Inside, there were over 800 pieces of blood marrow crystals and low-grade spirit stones alone, not to mention the elixirs, talismans, materials, and various other miscellaneous items. Su Jie estimated their value to be at least 1,000 or so. Additionally, there were 2 alien ghost corpses. Altogether, just the storage bag was worth more than 3,000 blood marrow crystals. It was evident that Pei Haibing's wealth was significantly more substantial than Feng Wenjin's, whom Su Jie had hunted previously. But it made sense when he thought about it, as Su Jie had clashed with both Feng Wenjin and Pei Haibing. One had the cultivation of the 6th level of the Yunling realm, the other the 7th level of the Yunling realm. Pei Haibing's combat power was much stronger than the former, and a cultivator's wealth was often tied to their strength. For an average outer disciple, the monthly income was merely a dozen or so blood marrow crystals, out of which they still had to pay the monthly fee to the elder, and then buy some elixirs and talismans. They couldn't save much money by the end of the year. However, inner disciples didn't have this problem. Not to mention, Su Jie knew that during the last alien ghost incident, Pei Haibing had received no small amount of tribute from his own outer disciples just to arrange a better station location. And Su Jie's gains were not only limited to this. Besides Pei Haibing's spoils of victory, there were also the corpses of 4 Purple Mist sect disciples at the scene. Quickly, Su Jie harvested 3 more storage bags. Only Chu Pu, the wretched one, didn't even have a storage bag. The 3 storage bags exploded with 100 to several hundred spirit stones and materials, respectively. Although the iron clothes and iron hats on their bodies were somewhat damaged, Su Jie still collected them. As raw material recycling, they were quite valuable, and covering tracks while destroying evidence was a demon cultivator's specialty. Apart from these gains, Su Jie did not, however, obtain any cultivation techniques this time. It was understandable, as profound cultivation techniques were mostly in the form of jade scrolls. Besides, when one's cultivation was insufficient and they needed to repeatedly study the technique, most people kept their cultivation techniques at home rather than carrying them around. Su Jie had even wanted to try and learn the Wanxiang Heavenly Power True method of the Purple Mist sect, but now it seemed he was thinking too much. Fortunately, Su Jie wasn't disappointed, as the harvest for the day was already substantial. You can rest in peace, knowing you've met a fitting end. Rest assured, I'll inherit your legacy and strive to elevate it, Su Jie said, glancing at Pei Haibing's skeletal remains on the ground. Clapping his hands, corpse hands, pale as death, crawled out from beneath the 1,000-handed centipede. They moved rapidly like nimble little sprites, quickly cleaning up the battlefield. Finally, he used the purple light ray to destroy any potential traces of himself several times, leaving no blood, hair, or skin flakes behind. Only after confirming that no traces were left did Su Jie leave the place alone, fetching the horned scale horse to catch up with Gu Weonian's group. It's already been a day. We can't wait any longer. We've inquired for news, and it seems there were traces of Purple Mist sect disciples, maybe Brother Pei. There are only 3 days left for the mission deadline. We must arrive on time. In the dense forested mountain, teeming with the sounds of insects and birds, a group of several dozen riders were temporarily camped here. As Su Jie listened to the disciples' clamor, he rotated the rabbit he was roasting in his hand, occasionally seasoning it. Come, see how my cooking is. After dividing the roasted rabbit into 3 portions, Su Jie passed them to Gu Weonian and Chen Yun, who were sitting beside him. Brother Su, do you think Pei Haibing is really dead? Gu Weonian chewed on the rabbit meat. His eyes filled with a sense of relief. If Pei Haibing were dead, then they wouldn't have to live in fear of retaliation from him ever again. Who knows, now the living can't see him, and the dead can't find him. It's possible he really did have the misfortune of encountering a reputable sect. Haven't our disciples gone to investigate? They said that recently, there have been Purple Mist sect disciples spotted in this region, but luckily we didn't run into them. Su Jie shrugged his shoulders, making guesses along with Gu Weonian's words. It's hard to believe. They say that Pei Haibing's white bone transformation skill is terrifyingly powerful, and ordinary disciples of reputable sects are mostly no match for him. Chen Yun's gaze flitted over Su Jie with a hint of uncertainty. Su Jie had returned en route the day before without a trace, and considering Pei Haibing's disappearance, she harbored a terrible suspicion. Yet, when thinking of the disparity in their strength, she couldn't quite believe it. That, I don't know. Perhaps the Purple Mist sect disciples who took action are also formidable figures. Su Jie laughed, but whatever the case, there was no evidence of his death now. An hour later, the group of several dozen made a decision and continued their journey on horseback. Regardless of whether their leader Pei Haibing had met with an accident or not, everyone had a mission to fulfill and couldn't wait forever. 3 days later, at noon, with the sun high in the sky, Su Jie and the others finally arrived at the prearranged escort destination, Luyun Manor. It was a manor built beside a mountain, surrounded by dense forests and flowing streams. Nestled against the mountain and by the water, its scale was incredibly magnificent. From afar, one could see the antique towers and pavilions interspersed among the mountains. Each building was exquisitely crafted, and the flowers and bamboo in the courtyards were in full bloom, exuding bursts of fragrance. There were numerous guards patrolling inside the manor, most of them possessing cultivation, suggesting Luyun Manor's capability to do business with Ghost Ridge Palace in the trade of human slaves was not to be underestimated, beyond what would be expected of mere merchants. Su Jie's cavalcade was very conspicuous. As soon as they emerged from the forest, several swift horses from Luyun Manor came to meet them. In accordance with the prearranged meeting, Su Jie and the others unfurled the Ghost Ridge Palace banner early to reveal their identity. We've been waiting for a long time, esteemed representatives of Ghost Ridge Palace. The manor has prepared a feast to refresh and welcome you all. A few guards rushed over to the forefront of the riders. It was evident that they were accustomed to hosting the disciples of Ghost Ridge Palace and knew their business well. After a brief exchange to confirm their identities, they entered Luyun Manor with the guards. This is just too wealthy. Gu Weonian's eyes were filled with envy, marveling at the manor's intricate and scattered buildings, its garden pavilions, ponds and rockeries, and the lush greenery of trees, all highlighting the owner's immense wealth. Please, this way. The guards led the guests to a separate courtyard where tables and chairs, carved from wood and stone, were arranged, and pretty maids in long skirts were bustling about, brewing tea leaves and serving up delicious dishes to the disciples. By this time, the courtyard had already filled with numerous disciples from Ghost Ridge Palace, mingling and making merry in a noisy crowd. Most of these were outer disciples, but a small number were dressed in the attire of the Ghost Ridge Palace's inner sect. Clearly, they too had been assigned the task of escorting human slaves, gathering at Luyun Manor awaiting the moment to set off. In this group of Ghost Ridge Palace disciples, Su Jie spotted a familiar face. Yu Wenxian was sitting among a group of inner sect disciples, dressed in white brocade like a newly blossomed white lotus, her beauty striking and her long hair cascading down like a waterfall. The arrival of a new batch of disciples entering the antechamber drew the attention of those already drinking tea in the courtyard. "Oh, junior brother Su." Yu Wenxian stood up, holding her teacup, and walked over with a graceful step. "Senior Yu." Su Jie called out reservedly. In truth, he did not want to draw attention to himself. As Yu Wenxian approached, the group of inner sect disciples from Ghost Ridge Palace also turned their gazes towards him, and Su Jie could overhear people inquiring about his background. "I didn't expect to see you here. I recall that junior brother Pei should be leading your group of disciples. He hasn't given you any trouble, has he?" Yu Wenxian looked genuinely surprised. her gaze sweeping around but not spotting Pei Haibing. With a cough, Su Jie replied, I haven't had the chance to report to you, Senior Yu, but on our way here, Brother Pei went missing unexpectedly. Based on our speculation, it's possible he encountered disciples from a reputable sect and conflict arose between them. He has not rejoined our group up to now. Missing? Yu Wenxian blinked her foxy phoenix eyes at Su Jie for several seconds before suddenly asking, You don't know his whereabouts? Su Jie, of course, knew what Yu Wenxian was suspecting. After all, it had been she who had warned Su Jie to be wary of Pei Haibing. Fortunately, Su Jie was prepared, and with a composed expression on his face, he spread his hands wide. You jest, Senior Yu. If I knew Brother Pei's whereabouts, I would have found him by now. Yu Wenxian pondered for a moment, let out a light chuckle and said, Ah, poor junior Brother Pei. Such terrible luck. Such a pity for Master's favorite disciple. At least you're here, junior Brother Su. Otherwise, it would be terribly lonely being here all alone. For some reason, Su Jie felt the heat intensify in Yu Wenxian's gaze upon him. She couldn't possibly have taken a liking to me, could she? Alarmed at the thought, Su Jie knew all too well the kind of person Yu Wenxian was. He couldn't handle such a deadly woman. While they were speaking, Su Jie heard sobs and cries echoing from a building in the antechamber. Immediately after, several young men and women, with faces full of terror and limbs trembling, burst out attempting to flee as if their lives depended on it. Following their escape, a pungent smell of blood wafted from the open doors, and Su Jie's eyes narrowed slightly. Within, the scene was reminiscent of a slaughterhouse. More than a dozen human slaves were tied up, awaiting their turn to be served at the feast. Not far away, several inner sect disciples from Ghost Ridge Palace were sipping hot wine and munching on special ingredients, processed by chefs from Luyun Manor and prepared in various ways. Fried, boiled, or sliced raw. Upon seeing the human slaves dash out, the inner sect disciples made no move to chase them, but instead pointed and laughed heartily, their bloodthirsty and savage expressions revealing a twisted sense of delight. In the antechamber where some inner sect disciples were drinking tea, a few sneered or looked on with indifference toward the goings-on inside the building. To most, such scenes seemed all too familiar, and it was clear not everyone enjoyed such spectacles. What's this, junior Brother Su, you're also interested? These are human slaves provided by Luyun Manor for our amusement. You know, we demon cultivators are always killing and practicing all sorts of bizarre demon techniques. Many of us are under great psychological pressure and have special hobbies, enjoying some thrilling activities to invigorate the spirit and body. Seeing Su Jie looking intently, Yu Wenxian offered an invitation. If you're truly interested, I can help you talk to them. Never mind, I'd rather not go. Su Jie immediately shook his head and then saw a group of fierce guards from Luyun Manor capturing all the escaped human slaves, ignoring their cries and screams, and sending them back to the slaughterhouse-like building. I am truly sorry, we did not manage well. To show our apologies, we will offer another 20 people for your enjoyment. A Luyun Manor manager said with a smiling face, bowing to the inner disciples inside the house. The doors of the house closed again, and such amusements for inner disciples were not even accessible for outer disciples to watch. They could only listen to the faint sound of laughter from killing inside the house. Miss Yu, I didn't notice you were also here. Would you need some male companions? The manager from Luyun Manor saw Yu Wenxian and immediately plastered a pleasing smile on his face. What male companions? Are you trying to tarnish my reputation? Yu Wenxian's face turned cold, possibly because Su Jie was nearby. Yes, it's my fault for speaking carelessly. I'll slap myself. Upon hearing this, the manager of Luyun Manor knelt, his face panicking, and began slapping himself harshly back and forth across his cheeks. It wasn't until both cheeks swelled like steamed buns that Yu Wenxian waved her hand dismissively. Get lost. After all, it was Luyun Manor, and Yu Wenxian still gave some face. The manager from Luyun Manor quickly got up and left. Then Yu Wenxian turned to Su Jie with a smile. Junior Brother Su. Don't believe his nonsense. Actually, I'm quite proper myself. I just play around with those men. My heart has yet not settled on anyone. Hearing this, Su Jie's lips twitched, doubting whether Yu Wenxian understood the meaning of being proper. Senior Yu, come over for tea. At the tea table where inner disciples sat, someone called Yu Wenxian back. Coming, what's the hurry? Yu Wenxian turned back and gave a glance, then said to Su Jie, I'll leave first then. Come visit me if you're free. I hardly have friends here to talk to. Yu Wenxian turned, twisting her snake-like waist, and returned to the midst of the inner disciples. Su Jie noticed that after Yu Wenxian took her seat, most of the inner disciples treated her with utmost respect, a reflection of her quite extraordinary status. Oh, 2 days later, nighttime, Luyun Manor. Tonight was the day to escort the human slaves back to the sect. Early in the morning, the entire Luyun Manor was bustling. Batches of human slaves, shackled by iron chains on their hands and feet, were driven by escorts from Luyun Manor and pushed onto horse-drawn carriages. Su Jie stood by the roadside, counting the number of human slaves. The overwhelming number of heads looked harrowing. I heard that a drought recently occurred in Jingzhou, and some refugees fled to Qingzhou. Jiaxiao Prefecture also has many unattended refugees who were captured by the government and left unhandled. Some were driven out and died from hunger and cold. Some were sent to dark mines never to see daylight again. Some, however, were sold into slavery by Luyun Manor. Ha, this is the Deli dynasty, treating its own citizens this way. I think they are no better than us demon cultivators. Chun Yun's tone was full of mockery toward the dynasty. Before, he had browsed through the books stored at the mountain gate, many of which had come from the Deli dynasty. These books were full of praise for the Deli dynasty, but now such first impressions were shattered and fragmented. Although Luyun Manor had restricted the movement of Ghost Ridge Palace disciples within its bounds, fearing that the demon cultivators might cause trouble, news still leaked out. Most human slaves were captured by factions. It has become a lucrative business, she said. Gu Weonian, having seen many such situations, displayed no mockery. He simply followed orders. Rise, and the people suffer. Fall, and the people suffer, he said. Su Jie sighed leisurely, watching as one human slave after another passed by the numerous disciples, reaching out their hands pleading for help. Please, let my child go. She is only 5. If you must kill me, but spare my child. My family is in Chiren County, we are wealthy. Take me back, and I will give you money, I swear it's all true. Another begged. Guanchao Pavilion, Taiching Mountain, Moonlight Society. So many reputable sects in Qingzhou will not let you devils off easily. You'll have a dire end one day, another threatened. These human slaves included men and women, old and young, some begging for mercy and others boldly cursing. More of them felt desperate about their future, their faces numb, like living dead, clumsily moving about. Horse-drawn wagons held these human slaves, while numerous Ghost Ridge Palace disciples lined up on either side to escort them. Lit torches illuminated the night sky, resembling a fiery dragon snaking across the land. The convoy did not head towards the official roads. Such a large-scale operation was far too conspicuous to transport them back to Ghost Ridge Palace this way. The wagon's destination was clear after 2 hours of travel under the cover of night. Su Jie's ears twitched, hearing the sound of the tide surging. A large river flowed quietly under the night sky, its waters slapping against the banks, embellished by the moonlight that lent a sparkling brilliance, like a black jade belt rimmed with silver. About a dozen large boats were docked there, with Luyun Manor guards patrolling back and forth along the shore with torches. Leading this group of Luyun Manor guards was a portly middle-aged man handling a pair of dragon-pattern walnuts, with sparse hair and a belly swollen as if he were 9 months pregnant. He was currently directing the operations. It was Jia Chongshuan, who had once visited Ghost Ridge Palace and was one of the significant figures of Luyun Manor. It was Jia Chongshuan's visit to Ghost Ridge Palace that initiated this large-scale transportation operation, with a significant number of disciples deployed to escort the human slaves due to a shortage at Ghost Ridge Palace. By the riverbank, Ghost Ridge Palace disciples followed the prior arrangement, escorting batch after batch of human slaves onto the boats. Due to the sheer number of people, Each boat's hold was packed like a sardine tin with human slaves. The murky air, poor sanitation, and the jolting journey made the conditions not for humans, but rather like those for livestock. Su Jie boarded the seventh large boat, which, aside from a few crew members provided by Luyun Manor, was supervised by the Ghost Ridge Palace disciples. This large boat also had an inner disciple from Ghost Ridge Palace, a burly man nearly 2 meters tall with a rare red beard, named Su Yihu. Brother Su, this is a gift specifically for our sect master. I hear you're skilled in fire technique, so you shouldn't be afraid. You must take good care of it, he said. Jia Chongshuan arrived with a group, carrying a huge box onto the boat. What is this? Su Yihu asked, surprised, not knowing what was inside the box. Open it, ordered Jia Chongshuan. With a nod, his guards quickly opened the box, laboriously lifting out a man-sized crystal. Astonishingly, sealed within the crystal was a young woman wearing a light yellow long dress with a blue silk belt tied around her waist and fresh, tender flowers inserted in her hair. Her eyes were tightly shut, hands clasped around her knees, curled up. She looked like amber frozen within resin, securely sealed inside.